Since being thrown out of the Windsor estate, the police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation and development on this story involving the Epstein files and all the allegations that have been swirling around about Andrew over the many years, from Virginia Giuffre, now sadly deceased, and since then, and certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. But the police have arrived at Sandringham Estate this morning, where Andrew has made his new home. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is. He has been arrested by the police. Of course, the brother of the current king, the second son of our late Queen Elizabeth. This is an extraordinary development. Those of us who've been talking an awful lot about establishment cover-ups and lack of, should we say, interest by the police in what are very, very serious allegations against Andrew. Perhaps pleased that that pressure has finally been put on the police, and they have done the job of actually looking into these issues seriously. Must bear in mind, of course, that the Prince has not been charged with any crime at this point, and he has always denied any wrongdoing in relation to any of the allegations about him. We'll give you more on that. We'll talk to you about that throughout the show, but I'm just being told that the arrest has been on suspicion of misconduct in public office. This, of course, relates to those Epstein file allegations and the documents that, if they are true, would suggest that he had, it is alleged, passed on basically what was confidential government information when he was the UK trade envoy for this country for 10 years to Jeffrey Epstein for Jeffrey Epstein's financial gain.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, happy Sunday. I hope you're feeling well rested and perky, and that the weekend so far has been delightful for you. And I hope whatever you have planned today involves me for the next 3 hours, because I'm very much looking forward to keeping you company. Lots to talk about, lots of bits and bobs knocking about in the newspaper. How long is Sir Keir Starmer for this world? Is he going to cling on as Prime Minister? Well, he seems to think that he's going to be Prime Minister for the next 8 years. 8 years! But the problem is with this, I think you should take the man at his word. I want to know what he's got up his sleeve. What is he plotting? How is he planning to stay in power that long? Although, meanwhile, other people say a leadership contest could be triggered as early as Monday. So, lots of political drama to come. And I'm delighted to say that I am joined, very special guest day, I'm joined by somebody who I don't think has been on this channel before. Someone who is... well, I've known her a long time, but otherwise, it's a bit of a dark horse, an elusive character, possibly the future First Lady of the United Kingdom. It's Laura Ferrari, Nigel Farage's other half. Good morning, Laura.
Good morning, Alex. How are you today?
I'm very well. Yeah. How do you feel being here in the studio and being unveiled, unleashed upon the world?
It's not something I do, honestly, but it's a bit of fun. I like a challenge.
I know.
You asked me to come, I said, yeah, let's do this.
Exactly, and I think you're going to be brilliant. And, and also it gives the public the opportunity to find out, you know, who you are, what you like.
Let's hope I don't disappoint.
You won't. You absolutely will not. Did you go out and about on the campaign or anything with Nigel, or did you just let him get on with it?
No, so I did a few events. I went to Thurrock, Croydon, whenever. Losing my earpiece. I did a few.
See, I told you, Chris, that earpiece.
I've got big ears. So no, I did, but it's impossible to follow every step of the way. There's lots of travelling.
How many events did he do? Because like I spoke to him the other day, and he was helicoptering somewhere, and it's like.
I think it's adrenaline, and I think that he's obviously a highly motivated person, and some people just can live on adrenaline and motivation. I know for me, and I'm a bad flyer. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be. I've never been in a helicopter, and I don't want to go.
I'm always amazed, you know, following his sort of, you know, plane crash years and years ago.
Oh, yeah,
but, you
good
know,
point.
Getting back into sort of light aircraft is quite a...
I think that's the thing he did just after the crash, right? It was to go back on a plane. Like,
Right.
you know what they say, if you fall off a horse, the first thing you've got to do is to go back on the horse. And so, yeah, good on him. I'm a bad flyer. I hate it.
We've got a bit of breaking news, which is Catherine West. She's a Labour MP, and she says, what I want the Cabinet to do is close themselves into a room today and come up with somebody who they can all get behind, which would mean we wouldn't have to have a leadership election. Now, my understanding is Catherine West is the person who's threatening. She says she's got the backing of about 20 MPs already, thinks she can get over the threshold of 80 odd something, which would then trigger a leadership competition. So she's threatening, I don't know who she is, never heard of Catherine West? No, me neither. But she's threatening essentially to try and bring down Sir Keir Starmer. I mean, what do you feel about this? Because we've gone through the Conservative Party changing leaders all the time. We've had Starmer for 2 years, and look, I don't think you're about to, you know, say he's the best Prime Minister we've ever had. Please don't go. But I don't know, what do you make of it? There's this sort of constant changing of leaders when things go wrong.
So I think that the Conservative succession of leaders was, to be brutally honest, boring, and it didn't solve the problem.
No,
it didn't solve the problem. It was a good escape. Look, we have a problem. This is the solution, and it was never the solution, was it? Actually, some people argue it went, you know, worse and worse. So I understand the point that maybe that is not the solution. Now, when he says, "I don't want to plunge the country into chaos," I'm like, well, what has he been doing for the last 18 months? That's a bit, you know, and it was serious.
Yeah.
It was being serious.
Yeah.
Also, there's no clear, obvious choice for the Labour Party. There's no one remotely exciting, right? Or clever, or... No, but it's true, though.
Yeah, charismatic, or looks like an obvious, that would make a good leader.
Or someone who has a plan. Even this lady, I agree with you, nobody heard about. I don't know whether she's being brave or silly, but... You know, she's completely delusional. So, for instance, what she said, I'd like to see, I don't know if you listened to her interview, I did, when she said to the interviewer that we need to promote what Labour's good at, like the, you know, Renters' Rights Act. Women, that's a disaster. This act is a disaster. So I don't think that there's a clear choice here. I don't know, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, look, as a journalist, a leadership election's fun because it's like something to talk about, you know, it's more exciting than, you know, talking about local elections still day 3. So, you know, it is one of those things that as journalists love these stories, they love the jeopardy. But I do think it's, I mean, look, everyone hates Macron in France, right? But you don't have this thing in France where people have hated Macron for years, but there's no sort of, oh, he must go down step down as president, we must challenge it. I mean, does that go on?
Yes,
or is it just like
it does.
we're stuck with him?
And if you allow me to make a parallel here, I think that Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron are very, very similar in many, many ways. There's a bit of an age difference, but not much. They're both globalists, and they are not going anywhere. They are not. If Macron could have gone, there's so many ways they could have got rid of him, or he could have just resigned. It's happened in the past, you know. It could, but he's on a mission, or he's been put on a mission. No, I don't want to be too conspiratorial here. But but it's interesting because when you look at Keir Starmer with a straight face, almost looking like a cyborg, going like, I'm not going anywhere, you know, I'm here for, you know, a 10-year mission. You're thinking, okay, who's doing this? Because he's so convincing, or he sounds, you know, convinced himself that he's here.
See, I reckon what he might try and do, like comparing Macron and Starmer, I think what Starmer could potentially try and do is what Macron did when he called the snap election and made a coalition against Rassemblement. And I think that if Starmer's looking at the election results, the local election results, about 60% of the country, I think, had elections in their areas. And you look at, if you sort of did it by percentage point, the left-wing vote, the right-wing vote, the left-wing vote was bigger. You know, it was by a percentage. I think it's something like 42% were on the right. So if I was Starmer, I'd be looking at that saying, I'm going to go and speak to all these parties. You know, they're in a coalition in Wales with Plaid. And I'm going to say, look, if we all club together, I'll give, you know, Zach Polanski, you can be, you know, energy minister, and SNP, you can be this. You know, I'd be going around having those conversations and planning to do something similar. And I also wonder, because the Welsh elections that have just passed have been done under PR, under the DeHont system, you know, the EU Parliament system. And I wonder if he's going to look at that and think, now that is a good way to stay in power. Move to a PR system, get rid of first past the post. Apparently, that's in train. So when Starmer says, I'm not going anywhere, I think we need to believe him. He's going to play games. He's going to change the way people vote. He's going to extend the vote to 16-year-olds. He'll make super coalitions, the Anyone But Reform coalition. And that's pretty much what Macron did. And
changing prime ministers and going like, okay, well, this one didn't work, so we're going to put... But again, it didn't work. And I think you're absolutely right. They've got something very much in mind, which is a long-term sort of mandate, mission, etc. And whatever it takes, they will do. So you're probably right here.
Have you been following this story of the boat, MV Hondius, with the hantavirus? It's been sort of patrolling the seas, and everyone's like, don't dock here, don't dock here. So apparently the first wave of passengers and crew being taken off the boat, they're dressed in blue scrubs, head caps, but they've been taking photos of each other. Boats carrying people in protective equipment started heading towards land in the last few minutes. So Tenerife have basically said to this boat,
so it's the Canary Islands then?
It is the Canary Islands, yeah.
Because was it Cape Verde that
says... they said don't stop.
Yes, don't stop. We don't want you. Yeah. Are you worried about it? I'm not really worried about it.
This one, no. I think everyone's sort of hyping it up, aren't they? I mean, look, it sounds like a really horrible thing to get, like 40% fatality rate or something, but... Yeah,
again, I think it's just a media thing, you know, and, you know, what can we get excited about? Or, you know, maybe it's the wrong word. But it doesn't worry me, and I think... Maybe there's other things to talk about.
There's a lot of other things to talk about. Now, let's go back to local elections, because apparently in Manchester, again, there have been reports of this so-called family voting. Do you hate the way they do that? This is basically electoral fraud, and they give things such nice names. It's like cousin marriage. I know. It's incest.
I know. It's like family voting. It's coercion.
Yeah. But I mean, do you get stuff like this in France? Because let's talk about the sort of, when we have, you know, issues of multiculturalism, divided communities, ghettoisation in the United Kingdom, it strikes me that it's actually worse in France.
So I don't always praise the French systems, you know, I'm very critical, but actually our voting system is bulletproof.
Yeah.
So you have, you receive a polling card, it's under your name. When you go to the polling station, you need to show a photo ID, name. So if you don't have this, you don't even, you know, go into the actual building. And then your name and your passport are checked again.
Right.
As you put your vote through the box. I think the only exception is you can take a child under the age of 10, I believe. I remember going into a polling station with my mum, and I said, Mommy, can I see? Which she wouldn't even tell me what she probably didn't trust me. That's the only exception. We don't have postal votes.
Yeah, that's it. We've got to get rid of postal votes, apart from in exceptional circumstances.
It's so open to fraud. We do have proxy votes, but again, you have to do so many things in order to organise that for a friend or a family member or so on and so forth. No, family voting, I think, is a disgrace. As a woman, I'm appalled, because let's face it, it's mostly a man taking his wife or his sister or whatever into the polling, you know, booth to just say, making sure that she's voting correctly.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, this country gave the woman the vote very early compared to other countries. Was it 28? So we're celebrating 1 century soon, 100 years. To see that actually a man can still tell us how to vote, I just find it absolutely shocking.
Do you know what also I find absolutely mad in this country? And I don't know, I think it probably is the same across the Western world, but it was revealed about, I think it's 44% of 18 to 25-year-old girls voted Green Party. And you think, do you know what you're doing? You know, this is the party. They think they're being kind and nice. And it's like, this is the party who will have men put on frocks and go into dressing rooms. This is the party who want completely open borders. They want to legalise prostitution. They want to legalise all drugs, including the date rape drug. And you think, oh my goodness, you know, if that's what you want, women, you are basically digging a grave for, you know, you and future females. Because, you know, can you imagine those policies and how that's going to impact on women? And you think, why do they do it? Why is it always women who are the ones saying, you know, be kind to the people coming over on dinghies, don't be a racist? And it's the men saying, these men pose a threat to women.
Yeah. So that's a very interesting phenomenon. And I think the tide is turning. We're seeing that in the US.
Yeah.
So lots and lots of conservative women are now opening up and becoming probably even a bit more opinionated on the topic. And they're going like, do you know what? I'm just going for it. Here, I don't understand. I think someone told me once that and it's a woman who told me this, that maybe women vote a bit too much with their heart and they're, you know, bit more emotional. And if you so it's not, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think being emotional is a good thing in life, and that's why men and women are so different, because and we complete each other. But sometimes less emotion, more facts is
like
better.
pragmatism.
And
I think a lot of it's about like looking good as well. It's presentation, isn't it? It's, oh, I vote the Green Party, I'm so modern, I'm so progressive, I'm so kind. You know, it's a bit like having a Gucci handbag or something.
Yeah, it's wanting to be loved as well. Who wants to be hated?
Yeah.
Who wants to be hated? In this era of social media and constant judgment, that who wants to be the hated, you know, person?
Does it worry you, you know, things like Nigel's safety? Because there's been so much negativity spoken over him for decades now. And out of all of the MPs, out of all the political figures in the United Kingdom, he's the one who sort of gets the death threats. He's the one who's had wet concrete thrown at him. He's the one who's had, you know, been whacked over their head with placards. And then they took away his, you know, state security. And now they're complaining about, oh, well, you know, he got a private donation for security. I mean, that must really worry you that he's protected.
Remember, our house was nearly set on fire just a year ago. And actually, I'm the one who found out, you know, the thing. So I was like, whoa, that really spooks me. And sadly, it's the world we live in. I'm not saying, do you know what is odd? And you must be the same. What is odd is even people like us, we've sort of accepted it. Like it's fair game. We're the side that take, you know, the abuse. But we can't abuse in, you know, in return. And that's crazy. But maybe that's what mass, you know, mass conditioning does to people.
Yeah, but it is, you know, it's always like the right wing are portrayed as evil and bad. And this is the difficulty. I mean, somehow I think the right wing needs to sort of be able to reframe the moral message, because the left wing is so good at saying, because this is the right thing to do. That's what Starmer always says. But open borders, that's being kind. And we really need to sort of be able to persuade women. We need to sort of move the goalposts when it comes to what people think is right and normal and ethical, and say, no, actually making the case for women's safety and making the case that breaking into a country illegally isn't nice, is dangerous. And I think that's something that we have failed to do. You know, people on the right wing of politics have failed to do for a long time now.
It's that, and I think it's education as well. So, for instance, you know, people are protesting against, you know, Israel or against the what's happening in Iran at the moment without actually having seen anything. So it's easy to go like, yeah, I'm pro this, I'm pro that, without actually having seen anything. So it is a bit graphic. I'm going to try to be careful about what I say here, but maybe, do you remember when we were at school and we were shown awful pictures of young kids coming out of concentration camps, looking, you know, so frail and everything? It really shocked me. And we were children, right? And our parents didn't debate whether it was appropriate or not. It was a duty from the school to show us the facts, so that we would never do that again. Remember? And I'm thinking, do parents or schools need to actually show them what Hamas did in the 7th of October, on the 7th of October?
Have you seen any of the footage?
So I've seen some of it. I'm not going to lie. I can't possibly go through it. Otherwise, I'd be PTSD for the rest of my life. I mean it.
I saw it when I was in Israel. I went to the IDF headquarters and saw the complete unedited footage, and it's
because they are the one who compiled. Nearly, I've got, you know, it's given me goosebumps, and not in the right way. they are the one who compiled nearly an hour, I think, of footage from basically hostages because they had body cams and stuff like that. And I think that if any kid were showed this, I think they would change their tune. I really do.
That's what I think. I don't understand why. Look, you can't sort of go sticking that footage up on the 6 o'clock news because some of the things were ghoulish. And a lot of this stuff was filmed by Hamas themselves and put up on social media. And it staggers me that, you know, despite the visual evidence of what went on October the 7th, still people sort of gloss over it. People go about with, you know, little paragliders on their, you know, on their banners and things like that, and think that Hamas are freedom fighters. And I just think, when is the modern age? This stuff was filmed. We've got evidence of what happened. How, despite all of that?
Well, because the mainstream media and again the education system are not willing to do their part of, you know, to take their part of responsibility, which is informing us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a shock. Let's take a short break, and then we come back. Let's talk about some sort of not more interesting, but more light-hearted stories, perhaps. I'm going to find out what Law likes to drink at an airport. What do you like to drink at an airport? We're going to be back right after this.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Do you know what? Sometimes you look at the news and you think, is it April Fool's Day? Poisson rouge, right, in France. This story is one of those things you just think, what on earth is going on? So apparently, up in Scotland, in Holyrood, there's a Tamil immigrant who comes from Tamil Nadu in the south of India. I used to live there. And he no longer has a visa to stay in the UK. And he's just been elected as an MSP. Like, he's now going to have a tax-funded MSP salary of £77,711. But of course, he's a trans Green Party candidate, and apparently the SNP government introduced legislation last year changing the fact that foreigners could only stand for election if they had indefinite leave to remain in the UK. Here's this guy, he hasn't even got a visa to stay in the UK, and he's now elected to one of our parliaments. It's a madness.
I don't know what to say, Alex. Is this real?
I think law for Prime Minister is what you should be saying.
Is this real? Are we actually discussing, are we having this conversation right now?
Yeah, this guy is not even necessarily allowed to stay in the UK, but he's now elected to Parliament.
Right, so what are they going to do with him?
I don't know. Lord knows. Apparently he's got a PhD. He's a bright young man.
I'm sure he is.
And it's a PhD
Man or woman then?
I don't know, actually.
Yeah, well, exactly, it doesn't say, right?
He, her. Him.
They.
I don't know. I can't keep up.
They.
Do you have the pronoun thing in France? Because
No.
because you've got gendered language. I've often thought how that would work. You know.
Oh, that would be weird. No, I think that
leave that earpiece.
leave the
I
earpiece.
knew that was going to do.
Yeah,
Earpiece is a nightmare.
I don't
that
need
thing.
it. I think that the wokery, I don't know what you call it, is very much a English-speaking Western problem.
Yeah.
So it hasn't really happened yet in France. And you know what? It's weird because when I go back to France, you know, from time to time, I feel a bit freer.
Right.
It's bizarre. It's really bizarre. It's just a
not
Russian
as-
channel, and
not
it's
as
France.
woke. Yeah.
You know. I think it's very much an English speaking. I think you know, America, Australia,
Yeah.
the United Kingdom, but we have a certain amount of wokery.
Have some wokery, but not our level of wokery. Now, is it
That
woke?
wouldn't happen.
Is
That
it
wouldn't
woke that
happen.
Ryanair chief Michael O'Leary has called for a ban on airport pubs serving alcohol before early morning flights? Tim Martin, I'm sure you know Sir Tim,
Yes.
boss of Weatherspoons, has said that this is ridiculous. It's a liberty to be able to have a pint at the airport. Are you a flight, at the airport can have a...
Yeah, well, Larry is hilarious, really, on that one, because that's what people do. We feel less guilty having a drink at the airport before a flight that we would do at home.
Yeah.
Clearly, I would never have a drink. I wouldn't even consider it before, noon at home, let alone 6 a.m. or whatever. But if you're, well, first of all, I think we're talking about people going on hen do's and hen parties and, stag do's. So there's a bit of celebratory, mood that calls for a drink. Or you can be like me, a nervous flyer.
Right.
And that's literally, it's either that or you cry your way through.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. Or you take things that are not good for you and just completely, knock you out. So I think it's madness.
What's your airport drink of choice?
I've got several, but
you can tell your Nigel's other half. I love it.
No, but I tell you what, maybe it's so to give me a good conscience. I like a Bloody Mary. Because
it's such an airport thing. Do you ever have a Bloody Mary anywhere else in life?
No, never.
But airports,
never.
It's like it's so true.
And if you're, if you're lucky enough and they give you the celery stick, you feel so special.
Breakfast as well.
It's breakfast. It's food.
Yeah.
It's good for you. Tomato juice and vodka. Just. Yeah,
I'll tell
that's
you
the
what,
job.
it is daylight robbery getting breakfast at an airport. It's mental. You go in there and you're like, yeah, I'm really hungry because I got up at sort of 3 o'clock in the morning to come here and I've got 3 hours before my blimmin' flight takes off and I got through much quicker than I thought, right, I'm going to sit down and have some food. And you order eggs on toast and it's £500.
Yeah, I would never dream of having breakfast in an airport.
Really?
No.
But the booze, definitely.
But a
Keep
drink,
the booze.
yes.
I don't blame you. I think it's sort of part of UK religion. Do the French do that? Because I always think the British are big boozers, and even though the French have all the best wine in the world, they're just not.
No,
they're not like us.
I think my family would be appalled if they saw me with a drink before noon. So let's keep that a secret.
Let's keep it. It's important, important British tradition, I would say.
It is.
Indeed it is. Wow, loads of messages coming in. Let's get through some of these. Oh, someone's just said the wokery is rife in Germany too.
Really?
Yeah, maybe it's sort of like an Anglo-Saxon thing then. Wokery.
Yeah.
The sort of Gallic common sense.
And the Gallic just go like... Pfft.
But I'm just going to put that one over there because that's yours.
Oh, thank you.
There's a big sign saying, don't have drinks that can spill in the studio. Oh, never mind. Merv in Wiltshire says...
It's coffee, by the way. Just saying.
Very French,
Just
black coffee. Morning, Alex. What a wonderful guest you have on today, says Merv in Wiltshire.
Oh, thank you. That's really kind of you to say.
And Laura, she's an impressive lady, destined to become a great powerhouse behind the scenes in number 10. Roll on the next election. Do you ever think about that? Because, Nigel said, front page of the Express, he said, the best is yet to come. We are going to get into number 10 Downing Street, and it certainly looks that way. And, well, that would be you in there, potentially. Do you think about that and how that's going to impact on life?
No, I think it's best not really to think about it, otherwise you don't do it, because obviously they've been vile during this, 9 weeks campaign to reformers, to Nigel, to, people close to us, to me to some extent.
Do you ever get sort of people being abusive to you?
No, because they don't recognise me. They might.
They
After,
do
they
now.
might after this morning.
We've ruined that one.
I'm organised. I've got a hat, and but it's Nigel's right. It's well, I don't know what he said. Remind me what he said, but it's not going to be. The best is to come.
Yeah.
Yes, the best is to come. That's for sure. Especially after those amazing results. But the worst is to come as well. In terms of security, in terms of threats, in terms of abuse of.
I think as well, when you look at what's gone on in America with ICE and just trying to sort of deport people and the crazy protests and, the rabid leftists and, thinking this is, we got to stop this. If we get a right-wing government, if it is Nigel as Prime Minister, and he tries to start enacting these policies, the pushback's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
It's going to be, you'll be blamed for everything. It's going to be brutal.
And do you know what is astonishing? I always find it's always a minority, but the voice that these minorities get, the coverage they've got from, mainstream media, and it's just, I don't know. I believe that actually a majority of people would go like, well, do you know what? That's the way it is, and let's give it a go. Let's try.
But that's the thing, the sort of mad leftists, the activists, they drown everybody else out. But yeah, I'm thinking, have you actually given it any thought? Like, would you live in number 10 Downing Street? Would you stay, in the family home?
I don't really know. Is that an option?
Well, sure it is. If you wanted to live in number 10.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
Get some gold wallpaper, a la Carrie Johnson.
A la Carrie Johnson.
Yeah. The rumoured gold wallpaper. Have you ever been in 10 Downing Street?
Never.
No, me neither. I think
Never.
it's sort of quite big and labyrinthine and, all the sort of accommodations upstairs. But I would imagine you'd probably want to stay out in the
I hear there's lots of mice.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
So with the antivirus thing, well, it's not looking good, is it?
Excellent. That's not what one wants.
Yeah.
Dave from London says, great show, Alex. Who would I replace Starmer with? Well, I don't know who you'd replace Starmer with, Dave. I don't know who you are, Dave. Nigel Farage, maybe. That might be your first choice. Someone's message, I'm so gutted, Alex. I live in Glasgow and study and work. I'm leaving as soon as I can. I'm screwed. My country is a joke. Is this happening in France? Like young people leaving the country to the same extent? It is in France as well.
It's not a new thing. It's really not a new thing, actually. Yeah. We've seen that hemorrhage of brains leaving the country a long, long time ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? What's the motivating factor? Is it sort of cost of living, job opportunities?
I really think the euro really had a bad impact on French, on the French economy, and the prospect for young people really decreased then, and they just thought, well, I know a few people that went, clever people, researchers and stuff, engineers that just went to Canada or America or yeah.
Wow, so it's not just
sad.
a UK phenomenon. It is sad.
It's super sad.
It's sad. Right, we're going to take a short break, but don't go anywhere because there's so much more for Law and I to discuss, including the French and boats crossing the Channel. I'm looking forward to your take on that one. We're back after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back. Now, let us talk about a couple of stories here. The first one is the blimmin' boats crossing the channel. I mean, look, you were there when Jordan Bardella came over to meet Nigel. He put a beautiful message on social media
Yes,
yesterday.
congratulations. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, and I feel like he really looks up to Nigel. And when he said in the meeting, OK, if you turn boats back, we'll take them.
Yeah.
Do you think he's sincere?
Yeah, and I think that more was achieved within an hour lunch time period than decades between our two countries.
I mean, that's staggering, isn't it?
Yeah, it felt like, OK, will you take the migrants back? Yes, we will. And then in exchange, can we discuss maybe energy? Would you buy, you know?
Yeah.
So there was already negotiations between the two men. And I just thought it was very encouraging.
What are his chances? Oh, Bardella, or young Bardella. Is he going to... I mean, if you look at the polling, and they've done sort of, you know, modelling for, you know, the runoffs and him facing this person, him facing that person, and he seems to beat everybody. Is he going to be the candidate? Is Marine Le Pen out of the game now?
I think that... Obviously, I am not involved with their party, so I don't know. My take is so popular compared to her that even if she was allowed to stand, she might herself decide not to stand.
Yeah.
She would make an excellent prime minister.
Yeah.
She doesn't have, you know, and he could appoint her as his prime minister. And I think that combo would work very well. I think she really likes him. I think she really wants him to succeed.
Yeah.
And I think she's come to the conclusion. You know, after how many decades has she been in politics? Like forever. Her dad has been in French politics forever. So it's very much part of her. And maybe, you know, come an age where you go like, oh, can I be bothered? Or do I have, you know, you become wiser. You go like, oh, does this person has a better...
But do you reckon he's going to... It's next year, isn't it, the French presidential elections? Do you think he's going to do it? Do you think he's going to get there?
I think he's got... Look, I've met him. I recognise, you know, the future leader in him.
Yeah.
So I don't call it what you want, whether it's gut feeling.
He's astonishingly young. I don't know if it'll make him one of the youngest ever.
It will, obviously. Wow. How old is he? 31?
Something like that, yeah.
He's extremely young, but he's extremely motivated, and I understand that he reads. He's a workaholic. He works a lot.
See, I thought we had a plan that I was going to become the future French First Lady. I know.
He's good looking.
I think so.
He's good looking. I will give him that.
Imagine it, the G7 summit. You there, Nigel, me there, Jordan. It would be great.
Yeah. Oh my goodness me.
That's the utopia.
Way to go. Way to go.
Right, we are going to have a little pause of our conversation because we're going to start getting serious. We are joined now by James Cleverly, Shadow Housing Secretary. Good morning to you, James. How are you doing this Sunday?
It's cold. It's a bit cold and breezy, but there are little pockets of blue skies, a bit like a metaphor for the election results.
Right, exactly.
Not quite as sunny as we would like, but with pockets of good news.
Right, I mean, Kemi made a sort of rabble-rousing speech yesterday saying, we're back, this is... I mean, the way she spoke, it was almost as if you guys had won the elections, and yet the results are far from it. Where is she seeing the sort of green shoots of hope? Why is she so confident that you're going to be able to recover from what, from the outside, looks like a pretty brutal blow?
Well, look, this was always going to be a tough set of elections. The previous time these particular elections were run was in 2022. That was the COVID vaccine bounce. We had a good year. These were always going to be tough, and like in my own backyard in Essex, we had really disappointing results. But what we have shown is that where we have a really clear message, and we get that message to the electorate, we can win back seats. We did so in Harlow in Essex, for example, Fareham, down in Tuella Braverman's patch, in South East London, in North West London, in Peterborough, in Central London. So the reason I was saying that there were some disappointing results is because that is the case, but we've also seen particularly where people look at whether it's the Green Party or Reform as an alternative offer, and they don't like what they're seeing, they turn to the Conservatives to actually get good quality local government. And I think that is the route that Kemi is going to pursue back into government.
Let's talk about the clear message from the Conservative Party, because from where I'm standing, the sort of things that Kemi Badenoch has been saying, she's actually come to the conclusion, yes, we should leave the ECHR, yes, we've got to really cut down on immigration, yes, we need to bin net zero. And I'm thinking, well, there's not a cigarette paper between what the Conservatives say they want to do and what Reform say they want to do. And I suppose the difference for voters is the voters thinking, well, if the Conservative Party wanted to do this, why didn't you do it for the past 15 years? How are you going to be able to sell yourself as a uniquely different offer from Reform when, to a lot of people, they might be saying, well, look, Nigel Farage is the real deal. He's been saying these things for a long time. Why has it taken the Conservatives so long to get with the programme? So how do you sort of make yourself uniquely different to Reform's offer?
Yeah. I think a lot of it's down to credibility. I mean, frankly, Nigel Farage is all over the place on a number of the really big issues. So we still don't really know where he stands on welfare reform. Is he in favour of upping the welfare bill or reducing the welfare bill? They're all over the place on that. All over the place on defence. Is it Ukraine's fault that they were invaded by Russia, or do we need more defence? We don't know, because we don't have a defence spokesperson. We don't know where he stands on the economy. Is reform about nationalising industry or privatising industry? All these things are up in the air. So you say there's no difference between us. There's a massive difference between us, because Kemi has made it absolutely clear that we have got to get the economy back up and running, which means we do need a lower tax, higher growth economy. Reform nowhere to be seen on those issues.
Well, you say that, but
our borders.
I was going to say, when Nigel Farage announced Robert Jenrick as a shadow chancellor, he made a big speech laying out what the party's position was on economics. Look, I understand that there isn't, as far as I can tell, a defence spokesman for Reform. There's no foreign affairs spokesman. One has to assume that those things will be in train, but they have spoken about things such as welfare. And to give credit...
So Alex, hang on a second. Robert Jenrick didn't even vote with the rest of Reform when it came to changes to the welfare bill. So they're split within the party on this. And the fact of the matter is, where they have taken control, Kent County Council, an absolute basket case now. Worcestershire Council increased council tax by 9%. We're already seeing infighting, councillors resigning that only got elected on Thursday on the Reform ticket. They really are all over the place. And that matters. That matters because winning elections is not the end of the process, it's the start of the process. And we've seen with Labour what happens when parties get into office without a credible plan. The country suffers. Kemi is the only party leader with a credible plan to actually deliver on this stuff, rather than what we're seeing with the Greens, with Reform, with Lib Dems, who are very good about talking about stuff but can't actually get anything actually done. And that's the difference.
It's a problem that the Conservative Party now face as well, that Kemi Badenoch has made an impression as leader of the opposition, particularly in PMQs. You're a well-known face. But after that, it starts getting a little bit difficult to be able to pick people out. You know, you've lost a lot of your big names, and you've lost a lot of them to Reform.
Well, I tell you something, the ones who've gone to Reform, very happy to get rid of them. And actually, I mean, you say that about the Conservative Party. I mean, other than Nigel, who's in Reform? I mean, he casts a big shadow. Suella Braverman, very, very vocal when she was Conservative. Hardly heard anything from her recently. Rob Jenrick, again, couldn't get him off the airwaves when he was a Conservative on the verge of leaving. We hardly see anything from now. Zia Youssef's been put in a box. Richard Tice has been told to shut up. The fact of the matter is, this is a one-man band. You know it. You probably know it better than most. I know it. But more importantly, the British people are increasingly coming to understand that. Because Nigel's not running Kent. He's not running Worcestershire. He's not running Leicestershire or Lincolnshire. The people who are running those places are doing an appalling job. And if And if the country is going to be turned around, and it desperately needs to be turned around, it needs a government with a plan, not just a government with a spokesperson at its head.
Let's talk about some potential plans that a Conservative government of the future might put forward. And let's talk about some sort of particularly sensitive cultural issues, because these are always the thorniest and the most difficult, but I think they are sort of the most defining things now that people are concerned about. What would be the Conservatives' approach to it? But there's a big story today on things like family voting again in Manchester. We're seeing in Scotland there's a guy who doesn't even have a long-term visa in the United Kingdom from Tamil Nadu in India, who's just been elected to the Scottish Parliament. We're seeing a rise in sectarianism. We're seeing the pro-Gaza vote. We're seeing the emergence of extreme anti-Semitism. What would be the Conservatives' plan to tackle those issues?
Alex, this is an incredibly important point, and the Kemi's principles, the long-standing Conservative principles, is everyone plays by the same rules. We don't do differential treatment. It is illegal for family voting, and therefore that law should be applied evenly. I made the point with regards recently, for example, to travellers building on sites without planning permission. It's something that happened in my constituency. Our position on this is clear. Everybody plays by the same rules, but more importantly, we will make sure that the people whose job it is to enforce those rules evenly, dispassionately and consistently. And that is the difference. This sectarian stuff, the Greens flirting with Islamists to try and harvest the so-called Muslim vote, completely inappropriate. We've seen where that leads. The Conservative Party will be a party for everyone that plays by the rules, and we will come down hard on anyone that doesn't.
James, thank you ever so much. I'm pleased that the alarm going off behind you's finished. Poor us, eh? Poor listeners. That was an unpleasant thing. Anyway, thank you so much for giving up part of your morning to join us today. That was James Cleverly. We were talking there, Law, about, you know, I was saying to the Conservatives, because this is what they've always said about reform, isn't it? Oh, it's a one-man band. It's a one-man band. James seems to think that Zia's in a box and Tice isn't allowed on the airwaves and Jenrick doesn't say anything anymore. Well, I'm pretty sure I just saw Tice on the airwaves and Zia yesterday doing all the rounds, but there you go. But it's now a plague for the Conservative Party, because most people will know who James Cleverly is. We all know Kemi Badenoch. After that, you think, who's left?
Well, all the best ones just, you know, came to reform. So, you know, nobody. Suella Braverman is a big name. Robert Jenrick is a big name. So, you know, yeah.
Do you think in any way, shape or form that this is sort of partially backfired, that people are sort of looking at reform going, well, you're just a Conservative Party? Because there have been accusations now that reform is controlled opposition, that is now part of the establishment, because it's let so many Conservatives in.
Yeah, I think that they were quite clear about a deadline, and if you want to come, there was a deadline. So as I said, some of the best ones from the Conservative Party.
Wasn't it May the 7th or something was the deadline?
I think so. There was something. Yeah. It was early May. So what it does though, like, look, the people reform has welcomed are not, you know, non-entities. You know, you can't say Suella Braverman is not a good person with motivation, with convictions, and so on and so forth. So what people like her, like Robert Jenrick, brings is experience as well. And that was one of the main criticisms against reform, is that you've got, you know, if you went into power, you've got no one to actually tell you how it works, which I think is important. You know, it's quite a valid point. So no, we've got that. So whatever reform does, you know, it's never good enough, or it's, you know, yeah.
That's politics.
Yes,
that's politics.
Yes.
Right, let's take another short break. Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it?
Yes.
But don't go anywhere, because we're back just after this.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots of you messaging in about James Cleverly already. Alex Cleverly will be lucky to win his seat in the next election, says David in Swindon. Who is this delusional Conservative? James Cleverly just pushed me further away from the Conservatives. Cleverly by name, but not by nature, it seems, says Rob. And Robert in Chipping Barnet says, Alex, listening to that Tory, they really are still in denial. Reform a one-man band. I doubt the Tories will have 50 MPs after the next election. Suze said, hi, Law, good to see you. There you go. Cleverly talking about failing reform councils. Where has he been? Most councils have been bordering on bankruptcy for years, and one of the many reasons is the cutting of budgets from Westminster under the Tories. Half a dozen councils are bankrupt. The rest have massive deficits. Reform is inheriting many problems. It's going to be hard. 9 million on welfare and not paying any council tax is also an issue. Anyone on more than minimum wage benefits must pay their share. But she's talking there about the councils. I find it quite interesting that, I said, what would the Conservative Party do? And he says, well, in my own constituency, Travels have come on illegally tarmacked over this place and da-da-da. And I'm like, well, you're the MP, mate. Like, why haven't you done something? Like, what's going on here? But he was basically, though, accusing Reform of making a dog's dinner so far of the councils that they are running. Is there a bit of a learning curve? Has it been a bit of a bumpy start, do you think?
Well, I think a lot of people would have been new to the job, so we need to give them a bit of credit. I think that what we see with reformers is that they want to cut the waste, they want to cut the spending, and where, for instance, Mr. Cleverly is from Essex County Council, the waste has been absolutely incredible. Spendings were completely unnecessary, like employing DI officers, costing millions. Taxi fares to send, kids to schools. So he's in no position to lecture us and to lecture, Reform on, how to be successful running running councils. I think one thing you see with councillors, Reform councillors, is that they're very determined. And of course, it's never going to be an easy ride, and there will be little friction sometimes, but I think we need to wait and give them the benefit of the doubt.
I want to get your take on Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain. Because he left the party under what looks like very difficult circumstances. Now, I don't know what went on behind closed doors, but certainly what we saw in the public wasn't pretty. I don't think it was handled brilliantly well. But since then, he's made waves. He's, managed to get a fair amount of support. People say, well, no one out there really knows him. And only people on X know who he is. But I think he stood 10 councillors in Great Yarmouth, and all of them were successful. Do you think he poses a threat? Is he a worry? What do you make of him leaving and setting up his own entity?
I think it's just it was a revenge thing. I think there's a lot of ego there, and probably the ego thing was a problem in the first place, and that's probably why it clashed and he had to leave. He's very popular on the internet. He's very popular on X. It's not easy to establish a party. It's not easy because you need to dedicate time, and it's a 7-day-a-week job. You need to get up early, raise money, try to find talents. I can't see him do that, really, because, do you know anyone of significance that has rallied his cause? Have you seen?
It's interesting because, we've known each other a long time, because obviously in a previous incarnation of my life, I was once Nigel's aide.
Yes.
And so, those were the UKIP days. And so I've seen what it's like, how long it takes to build a brand, build a political party, to be able to field what, Reform stood, I don't know how many candidates in the elections, but they got about 1,400 or 1,500 elected compared to 10. So he might have been successful. But when people look at that clash of personalities, people say about Nigel, well, this is the problem. He falls out with everybody. Do you think that is a fair accusation.
So who falls out with who? So Nigel falls out or with everybody, or is it Rupert Lowe who falls out with everybody? Because it seems to be that Nigel is actually very good with gathering talents. I mean, look at, you know, Zia Yusuf is always on, you know, interviewed on TV and is very competent with. We've got Richard Tice. There's no clash of, you know, personalities and egos in Reform. I think that's what Rupert Lowe wanted to see, probably because he's got, you know, a bit of an ego, and I think he's used Reform, you know, to get a profile, and he got his profile, and now he thinks he can, you know, achieve something. But honestly, I think he's going to face lots and lots of, you know, hardship running a party. It's not easy. It's not easy.
Do you think sometimes the characterisations of Nigel, I mean, do you find them hurtful when people suggest he's racist or suggest he's sexist or suggest that he falls out with everybody, when people suggest he's sort of thin-skinned or narcissistic, or, you know, that must be incredibly hurtful and frustrating, hearing that about your partner?
It's not anymore. It's not anymore. But I tell you,
water off a duck's back.
No, but that is an interesting point, and that's why I was so adamant that he did the I'm a Celebrity, get me out of it, because I thought that people would get the opportunity to see what he's like in real life, which is he's extremely patient, extremely tolerant. He's a team player, you know, who did the, you know, clean the dishes and looked after the fire, and, you know, he did. And that's who he is. He's actually a very kind person.
What is it about his character that you wish people understood more? If you were able to, you know the man back at home, if you could just say, like, you know, this is what he's really like, this is what you need to understand about him. What is it about him that you think that people don't understand, that you'd like them to?
He loves people, like any type of people, and is genuinely a nice man, a very, very, very nice man. And I wish people saw that, because he's super generous, he's super, open-minded, and he's, I hated this expression, but I will say it, he's emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
Which I think is important when you want to, you know, lead.
And people have been sending messages saying, great to have Seen Law on your show, especially for a substantial amount of time as well. This must be a first. I don't recall any other party leaders or Prime Minister's partners being on interviews ever. Brilliant show, says Steve. You've gone down well, though. Ooh. Can I just say what an elegant, intelligent and grounded Miss Ferrari is. She'd make me proud to be our First Lady. There you go. Law has a good point about Cleverly and his background in local authorities. I think... with Reform in charge of local authorities for all the reasons mentioned. However, my hope is that Reform will uncover the waste, vanity projects and deals that go on, forcing a change in how councils are run forever. So, how have you found your little time in the studio? Do you want to come back? Do you want to do it again? Is this going to be the first of many? Or
surprisingly,
just for me?
No, I've actually quite enjoyed it, because it's like having a conversation, you know, with you around coffee, and coffee's good, by the way. I like it. Yeah.
I should have got on the Bloody Marys, right?
No, please, no, don't give me that reputation. I just want to, you know, it was just at airport. I'm not a morning drinker.
Well, there you go. But like Nigel, you don't say no to
if it's nice.
A swift one when the sun's over the yard arm somewhere.
Well, if it's with good company, I don't drink on my own.
Who does the cooking at home, by the way?
I do. Yeah. He does the fishing, so he catches, you know, the fish, and I do the cooking.
By the way, I've had some of Law's ceviche from Nigel's fresh caught sea bass. Yeah, do you remember last time we saw each other? You made amazing sea bass ceviche.
I love ceviche.
Yeah. Beautiful stuff. Right, anyway, there you go. Thank you so much for coming in and joining us today, Law. Like I said, it is a first. There she is. That is the other half of Nigel Farage. And you never know, if he goes into 10 Downing Street, we may be seeing a lot more of her. So I'm really delighted that she chose this programme to come and say hi to you all, so you can get to know her. Right, we're going to be taking a short break. Keep your messages coming in. If you want to call, it's 0344 499 1000, or more network rate. Same on WhatsApp, 87222 on text. Right, talk before you message. I am back just after this.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now, it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
I spoke to you about the situation in the Gulf and explained that the United Kingdom was not involved in the strikes on Iran. That remains the case. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defense of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region.
Mr Farage, would a reform government have allowed US forces to use UK air bases for offensive operations in Iran?
Yes is the answer to your question. I would have said to the Americans, please do use our bases. We will be supportive of you on this.
There were a series of very loud blasts in the area of Dubai that I'm based in. That's in the Marina area. It's a very touristy area, actually. Those blasts were the loudest we've heard yet, but equally we are reassured that they are most likely the sound of interception by the
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back to the show. I hope you've enjoyed the first hour, a bit of an exclusive. Bless you, Benedict. So Benedict Spencer's in the studio bringing hantavirus with him or something. Have you just disembarked from MV Hondius?
What an entrance that was. Death.
Yeah.
What kind? Instant.
Flown in direct from Tenerife.
Yeah.
But no, we just had Law Ferrari, who is Nigel's partner, on for the first hour. And I think very much a sort of big reveal, if you will. Did you get to see any of it?
Well, no, because I was on my way here, and there's because this is London, it's not like there's signal in the tube. It's not like there's tube trains half the time.
That's true. That is true.
Go on, what did Law Ferrari say?
Oh, no, we just got to know. I asked her about, you know, everything, really. Politics,
okay.
Nigel,
What
France.
did she say?
Well, lots of things. I can't just summarise a whole hour.
You should be able to summarise. You should be able, okay, give me like the 3 bullet points of Law
She's
Ferrari.
very good on knowing about council waste. She had quite sort of stringent things to say about Rupert Lowe.
So she did, on the subject of council waste, therefore, she didn't vote along the lines of geopolitical events halfway across the world for her council.
Yeah,
that's revolutionary. I've never heard of such a thing.
Well, Gaza on the ballot box
exactly.
in like a local ward in Birmingham.
Exactly.
Let's talk about these local elections.
No, must we?
I know, I slightly feel the same way. Having been in the studio Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I've already done 6 hours of talking about the local elections. But there's always more things to excavate, I think, conversationally. But we haven't really spoken about it much. Or have we?
It's because we like each other too much to subject each other to it off the bat.
But what do you make of it? You know, if this was going to be a snapshot to the future, I think one of the biggest difficulties the country's going to face is the whole country going to become like Birmingham town council. You know, we looked at the projections. If this had been a general election, Reform would be the single biggest party by a margin, but not particularly close to getting an outright majority.
I mean, I'm not surprised by that. I think what a lot of people have to remember is, and this is always why I try to caution people when they talk about Reform, and people get caught up in Reform because it represents something to them, and you just always have to sort of temper people and go, yeah, we're not quite there yet. It's only been around for a relatively short amount of time. The amount of progress that it's made in that short amount of time is remarkable, even taking into account the sort of the record unpopularity of the major parties. But it's not the case that it's going to just sweep the board and waltz into power. And that's for two reasons, if nothing else. One, because it doesn't have that sort of legacy, that institutional loyalty from lots of people. There isn't, I think, a cohort of people that it can necessarily rely on. I think its support, I don't want to say that its support is thinner than the other parties, but for a very long time, Labour and the Tories relied on people who were going to vote for them come what may.
Well, because it's a binary choice, essentially.
Well, I wouldn't even say it was because it was a binary choice. You'd have, at local level, the Greens and the Lib Dems do quite well, do very well, very often at a local level, and then when it came to the Nationals, people would be like, nah, not doing that again, I'm going to vote for the major two parties, even though we had with the coalition government the option of voting for a third party certainly was there. That doesn't yet exist for Reform. It has to earn that. That's going to take time. That's fine, but it simply means that they can't rest on their laurels there. And so, you know, we've got to bear that in mind, and the fact that it will take time, A, for Reform to continue to chip away at that kind of institutional support, but also B, I think for it to get to a position where the alternative is not a left-wing coalition, a loose left-wing coalition, because people vote tactically. And this comes hand in hand, ironically, with its rise. The more it does well, the more it chips away at that traditional support, and the more people sort of permanently cross over towards it, the more likely that left-leaning people will actually not abandon their party, so to speak, but think purely about tactics, purely about not putting a left-wing government in, not putting Labour in or the Greens, but simply keeping Reform out. Because we all know Nigel Farage is perhaps the biggest conviction politician of his generation. Everybody knows who he is. Everybody knows what he stands for. That gives him huge support in some areas, and it puts, I wouldn't even say a glass ceiling, it puts a concrete ceiling over him in some other areas. There are people who will never vote for him, regardless of what he promises, because of some ingrained tribal belief that he is the devil. So that's a problem that Reform faces.
When Kemi Badenoch said, we're back, look at it, is it great, we're making a big comeback, and I kind of thought, are we on the same planet? But do you think that the Conservatives can come back from this? Because we had James Cleverly on earlier, and what I want to get from the Conservatives is, OK, what is your unique offer? Yeah. What makes you different to Reform on the big issues people care about? Because I think that's going to be their difficulty. In some respects, Nigel Farage has first move advantage.
Yeah, we spoke to John Redmond on this station a couple of days ago, and we were talking about it was me and Mark Donald, and we were talking about the aftermath, and he was talking up the Conservatives and the possibilities that they had going forward. And I put it to him that the issue that they have right now is actually the same issue that they had when they were in government, and that is that the Tories are seen as a passive party. They're sitting waiting for things to happen. When they were in government, they were sitting waiting for, you know, some Hail Mary shot to save them. And if not that, they were just waiting for defeat. And you had actual backbenchers saying, well, maybe we need a period in opposition. You had that several years out from the election. And now they're sat here basically being passive, waiting for Reform to drop the ball. And listen, it's not the worst strategy given where the Tories are. They've been absolutely decimated. Their brand is in the mud. Reform being the new kid on the block, there's every chance that, like Icarus, they rise too close to the sun and something happens and there's a split. You know, we've already seen within Reform in its sort of earlier stages, you can have personality clashes. It's an opportunity, a new political party, for people with less of a profile to try and make their name, and that potentially means clashes going forward. I think that this is an issue. Its ideology is not quite set yet, Reform. It's still trying to find its feet. Again, this is partly what makes it so remarkable that it's doing so well. It's not something that absolutely everybody agrees on. But there is every possibility that as well as it gets into power and it does phenomenally well, that something happens and it splits and it divides, or that it gets into government and it finds that the job is too difficult, or that the forces of the civil service are arrayed against it too harsh. Or, of course, that it never gets into power in the first place and it's in a coalition, or it has to think about forming a coalition with the Conservatives. And, you know, that's a tricky thing for Reform to manage right now, because then you've got the Conservatives sat here going, well, OK, worst case scenario, maybe Reform get in, in sort of 3 years' time or so. And then we've got maybe a 50-50 chance, although given that it's British politics, maybe a 60-40 chance that actually they mess up, they drop the ball. And because they don't have that institutional support, I think the public won't actually be as patient with them as they might be. Unless, of course, Farage is able to sell people on a big vision beyond simply stopping the votes and changing the economy around. If he gives an actual vision for the nation, then that might help. And it's interesting, therefore, some of the people that they're hiring in the policy unit, people like James Orr and Sam Ashworth-Hayes, these are big thinkers. These are not simply political spin doctors or people who are good on comms. If anything, you'd say they're actually not great on comms. But when it comes to actually sort of big picture issues, these are very smart people, and those are quite interesting appointments. If he's able to do that, fine. If not, it's going to be harder for them, as Keir Starmer is currently finding now, to keep people on side if they've not got something to work towards. At which point the Tories then sat there going, OK, well, maybe we just have to sit here, and if over the next couple of years things go as badly for Labour as it looks like they're going to go, we might simply be the option for whom, to use that Boris Johnson expression, the ball comes loose from the back of the scrum and we're back in. Or, in the next couple of years, Reform aren't big enough to form a majority, so they have to go into coalition, at which point the Tories are then going, and once we've got our claws into them, that's where we can do some real damage to
Very interesting, that, because looking at the local election results, it sort of felt as though, they wouldn't be able to get an outright majority if it stays where it is right now. They've got to go for those last few percentage points if they're going to be able to get a working majority. And at the moment, that does seem slightly beyond their reach. So all this conversation about, would you do a deal? And of course, both parties are saying, no, we won't do a deal. But when push comes to shove, I don't think they'll cut off their nose to spite their face. Let's do some messages and take a call. So, first of all, Wayne says, I always wondered how Nigel deals with all these attacks verbally and physically. Now I understand. He has an amazing partner at home to reassure and keep him grounded. I really think she should be more prominent publicly with Nigel. She's a breath of fresh air who could really attract female voters for Reform. Nigel Farage really needs to give his partner more exposure, proving that he is kind to women, kind to people born in other countries who would get the extra few votes that he needs, says Steve in Swansea. And David in Worcestershire has challenged me, saying I didn't challenge cleverly when he spouts absolute nonsense and lies. For instance, twice now on Talk, he has banged on about to reform Worcestershire Council, putting up council tax by 9%. The reason for this is that the previous Conservative council left it in so much debt. All sorts of other rubbish spouted from his mouth. Challenge utter garbage, please. Thing is, with David, if I start interrupting people in interviews, I'll be told I've got to let the guest speak, and also it's always one of those things when someone makes a claim like the Worcestershire County Council put up council tax by 9%. Believe it or not, I'm not AI. I don't know. I can't fact check in my head. But look, this is why we have people on. We give them a platform. They make their arguments. We view your points as well. Right, let's take a call now and speak to James, who's in Kent. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Alex. Long time since we've spoken. I'm a man of Kent, and listening to what was it David from Worcestershire was saying, exactly the same thing in Kent. I voted Tory at the last local elections last year, and the Reform obviously swept the board, and I have to say they've been a breath of fresh air. The roads are being fixed, the potholes are being fixed, and they're not just sort of pouring a little bit of concrete into the holes. They're covering whole swathes of road in tarmac. Our council tax for this year has not gone up by the maximum, despite the fact the Tories did it at the maximum for years. So I think Mr Cleverly needs to get his facts right. Clearly he doesn't really know what's going on in Worcestershire, and clearly he doesn't know what's going on in Kent.
So you would say so far, as a voter who previously voted Conservative and has now moved to Reform, that you are thinking they're making a great success of this so far?
I think at council level they're doing a good job, yes. I voted Tory because the candidate was someone I know quite well and was very good, and I was sorry that she didn't get in. I voted for Katie Lamb in the general election because, again, I think she's a very, very good person. And if we had a general election tomorrow, it would be a tricky decision. But I think certainly in Kent, Reform is showing that they can run a government at a local level. And I think it's quite positive that if they did get into power at government level, then they would be able to do a reasonable job.
Well, thank you ever so much for your call there, James. It's interesting, isn't it, Benedict? Because everyone... I'm like, no one's done this to other political parties. No one says, right, you've got councillors, let's see whether you're successful at local... There's no one's ever been interested in local government and local politics until now, because it is the sort of, it's the only metric by which we can sort of assess reform running something.
And it's in a matter of weeks as much as anything. We've got to remember, actually, a lot of these reform-run councils, they've only just sort of got their feet under the table, and they're having to deal with institutional problems that are decades in the making, and they're also therefore having to contend with laws set down to them by central government that they have no power to overturn or even challenge. And it is a weird thing, actually, when you see the general state of the country, the general malaise of the country. Talk about bins and potholes and all that sort of thing. It might sound tired and tedious to the average Westminster journalist, but these are things that demonstrably impact people's lives. 10, 15, 20 years ago, actually, the state of the country at that low level was nowhere near what it is now. The idea of maintenance was pretty much de rigueur, and now increasingly it is not. We all understand why that is. It's because local authorities are having to divert funds into all sorts of other things that they should not have to do, but national government has just pushed that on them. That's why things are starting to break down. That is in a large part why reform is starting to gain a lot of momentum at a local level, rather than simply, oh, we don't like the boats. Because people tangibly see their living standards getting worse, but they see their council tax going up, and they see the cost of living going up, and they want to know why that is. You then parachute some reform councillors into a couple of isolated places around the country, you give them control, and then immediately people turn around and go, well, what are you doing? Why haven't you fixed it yet? This is something that's been 20, 30 years in the making, but you haven't fixed it in 6 months. What's wrong with you? You're a fraud. You're a waste. And therein, of course, is the nonsense about all of this, which is that people are not voting for reform, I think, just as a protest increasingly. They are voting for it because they can see that this is a long-term direction of travel. And this is when I say again what Farage will need to do. He will need to sell people a long-term vision to correct the course. And, you know, I think reform are treated very differently, actually, to how other more established parties are treated, because there is just that institutional sort of shrug, you know, when it comes to how other parties operate at a local level. I don't even think reform get the same amount of scrutiny as, you know, independents who campaigning on Gaza do when it comes to things like potholes and stuff like that. Actually, you know, when people sort of, you know, laugh and they go, oh, well, isn't it silly to, you know, focus on Gaza when what you should be doing is looking at potholes. But actually, you know, those people still don't get the same amount of scrutiny because they are simply sort of dismissed as crackpots. We have to give reform more time, because, you know, these things do take time, and they are dealing with the same problems that other parties were dealing with: lack of resources, lack of funds, lack of time to get these things done. But also, reform is, at least from what I understand, trying to implement things that it's physically unable to do because it doesn't have control of the levers of central government. And ultimately, as much as these things are delegated to local authorities, it's still central government that decides how it is that local authorities can go about dealing with these problems. So until that's addressed, you're never going to find out actually what reform would do differently, because they're never going to have the full ability to do any of these things differently.
Let's take another call. Let's speak to David in Sweden. Are you in Sweden, David?
Yes, I am.
Oh, well, how pleasant
my
for
other
you.
half lives here.
I
live in England and Sweden.
Oh, nice. How very EU of you. Right, what do you want to talk about, David?
Well, it's fairly clear to most people that we have a government now that nobody wants.
Yeah.
The irony of that, of course, is that the power to decide whether that government changes rests with the very people that we don't want in power. One of the reasons for that is because of the power dynamics of the House of Commons, where virtually all power goes to the Prime Minister, and there's really very little anywhere else. But it doesn't need to be that way. There is a mechanism, and I've written a book on it, so it's well researched, it's well detailed, and it's a full proposal. But it's possible for electors, as well as casting their vote for a Member of Parliament, to withdraw it as well. Now, under this mechanism, instead of Members of Parliament having one vote each, which is ludicrous, because you get in the Western Isles MPs elected with 8,000 votes, and one in London's elected with 47,000 votes. They both get one vote each in Parliament, which means that the voters in the Western Isles, their votes are worth 6 times more than the voters in, say, Newham. But it's because under the system, MPs would vote with the number of votes that were cast for them in the election. Now, there are a number of changes. It's far more proportional than we have now, and it also maintains single-party government, so no coalitions.
I mean, it's interesting. Let's talk about this a bit, Benedict, because so Starmer's turned around. Of course, you know, I think there's likely to be some sort of leadership challenge tomorrow. I think when Catherine West, whoever she is, did you know of Catherine West before?
I'd heard of her, but that's as far as it went.
Yeah, I never heard of her. But she's now someone everyone's talking about because she says that she has got the backing of 20 MPs in order to, you know, she thinks she can get over the threshold, is it 81 or 82?
Yeah,
and she thinks she can trigger a leadership contest tomorrow. So I think it's going to be, well, heating up just at the moment. I'm off air. But Starmer's turned around and said, no, I'm going to be here for another 8 years. And people are going, oh, you've gone mad, son. What are you smoking? But at the same time, I think we need to take his threat, because I consider it a threat, quite seriously, because I'm looking at the elections in Wales and, you know, extending the plebiscite to 16-year-olds, maybe toying with the idea of PR, forming super coalitions. There are still, I mean, look at the local election results, there are still mechanisms that he's got a majority in government. If he wanted to change the way we vote, he can do so. It doesn't need to be put to a referendum like the AV vote was. That was a choice to put that to referendum. He could turn around, crunch the numbers and say, right, this is how Labour can stay in power as part of a left-wing coalition and make it come to pass.
I'm sure that, well, there are ways in which Labour could absolutely stay in power. And this is why I say, you know, when we're talking about the possibility of a reform government in the next couple of years, don't price out the idea that it could be a left-wing coalition at all. And I do mean it when I say that they are cynical enough and spiteful enough to care more about keeping reform out than actually forming a functioning government.
How do you think the public would react?
Well, this is the key
if
thing,
an election was called, say he does a Macron, and calls a snap election, right? Says, I know I've been an unpopular fan base, I'm going to call a snap election. Everyone's like, what are you doing there? That's crazy. Which is how a lot of people felt about Macron. You know, the government kept falling apart. He was deeply unpopular. Called the snap election, but he called it because he had a plot, which was to create a super coalition, everybody versus Rassemblement, essentially. I mean, they're very good friends, Macron and Starmer. They've been having chit-chats, haven't they, recently, when they met up at the, whatever that summit was, some sort of, some other European thing.
The one in Armenia, isn't it?
Yeah. I get confused. You've got the Council of Europe, the European Council, some other thing that Macron's invented. But I wonder... I wonder, because like I said, I think, mark his words, I think he's being deadly serious.
Well, as I say, I think it would make a lot of sense. I think actually the weird thing is, even though it's not necessarily in the best interest short term of the country, Nigel Farage is probably sat here thinking, I really don't want Labour to be out of power. He probably wouldn't mind if there was a leadership challenge and a change of Prime Minister, because the party would inevitably, I think, end up with somebody to the left of Starmer, and that would be worse.
And the markets would go crazy.
That would absolutely be worse. But if we were to sort of continue on with Starmer, the longer you go on for, the more I think that is the idea, the appeal of a left-wing government is chipped away, because it also gives more time for people to listen to and watch Zach Polanski and go, oh wow, he really is a half-wit after all. You know, it doesn't matter how many great videos he puts out. Actually, I don't want to lend this person my vote at all. So actually, I think the longer that Labour is in power and there's not an election, oddly enough, I think it plays into Farage's hands. Because as you say, if it happens now, if the election happens now, he possibly doesn't, you know, he might be the largest single party, but it's not enough. And then the options are maybe try to govern alone if the left-wing coalition isn't large enough, or try and get into a coalition with the Tories, which I think really damages reform long term. And this is the thing, if you're Labour, I think Starmer is ambitious enough and ruthless enough to believe that he can carry on, and there's certainly ways in which he could try. I don't think it would work, but he would absolutely try. But if you're the Labour Party more broadly and you're thinking, right, what is the biggest threat to us long term? Is it, you know, the idea of reform growing and growing, becoming stronger and stronger? Is it the worst idea in the world to let a reform Tory coalition inherit the massive wave of inflation that's about to hit this country, to have to start fighting about who's going to get what position, what they're going to do on XYZ thing, to have the personalities of, you know, Kemi and Nigel, but also, of course, Jenrick back in that scenario as well. No love lost between any of these people. Lots of ex-Tories having to come face-to-face with their old colleagues and try to make peace. Lots of reform voters who have left the Tories specifically because they loathe them and would never vote for them, then having to come to terms with that is now their government once again. There would be a sense of betrayal. Would that not be, in fact, a pretty decent outcome for Labour, because then at the very least, in another couple of years' time, they might be able to turn around to the electorate and go, well, it wasn't the Labour Party that was the problem, it was the man, it was Keir Starmer. But don't worry, we've got rid of him now and we've had a clean break, and perhaps people buy it, perhaps they don't, but they certainly bought it post-Corbyn. You know, put it this way, once upon a time when it was Jeremy Corbyn, we were all sat here saying, well, that's them out forever, they'll never be back again. They were able, simply because the alternative was worse, to get back in by going, don't worry, we've got rid of that guy now, we've got rid of that tendency, we've started afresh, it's a nice clean start with a nice clean grey-suited technocrat. Obviously it turned out to be a lie, but still, you can see why they might be thinking, not the worst strategy in the world.
Well, yeah, no, this is it. This is why I say, mark my words, when Sir Keir Starmer says he intends to be here for 8 years, I believe him. But let's see. It could all go horribly wrong for him tomorrow.
Might be gone by Tuesday.
Exactly. Might be gone by Tuesday, exactly. He doesn't want to, but, you know, let's see. Is the writing on the wall just yet? Who knows? Now, listen, if you want to join the conversation, like James in Kent and David in Sweden, you can give us a call, 03444991000. Benedict and I'd be delighted to hear from you and your opinions on what is going on in the country today. 87222 is the number if you want to send a text message. If you're going to do that, you've got to write the word talk before you text. And before we go to break, here we go. I almost don't want to read it out. M.W. Brown says, does Benedict Spence think that public worker pensions should be cut? Or is he only against the state pension? We're not doing this again. No more pension chat.
I will simply set out a line. Listen to what I say. If you're a millionaire, you should not get benefits. If you're not, you've got nothing to fear. I assume that the people who are texting in must all be millionaires, given how angry they are, in which case, good for you. But if not, stop and listen to what I say for 2 minutes, because I will keep being rude to you if you don't. Let's go.
That's it. I'm not. Look, I've got PTSD from the last time that you started talking about pensions. I'm like, no more. I had to read it out though. I thought that was well, it was too tempting. Anyway, we're going to take a short break. Do get in touch with the show. I really want to hear from all of you guys. This is a weird one. I don't know why someone's actually sent this. Steve said, Alex, Sebastian, I meant Benedict. Where did I get Sebastian from? Reminds me of a food critic sat there pontificating, but never quite gets stuck in themselves. Criticising is easy. Even I could be a food critic, or with mucking up his name, maybe I couldn't. Steve, we still got all the messages for Dominic as well. I don't know what it is if people thinking you're called Dominic, but now you're Sebastian as well.
Thanks, Steve.
There you go.
I want a review of Trello by the end of the day.
Jason from Romford. Dominic couldn't be more wrong. Reform voters.
I don't care about Dominic.
Very patient. Most don't care about quick success. They care about long-term change.
No, they don't.
So now we've got Dominic, Benedict, Sebastian, and then this is my favourite. Studio guest.
Studio guest one.
Right, we are going to take a short break, but do get in touch with the show. We love to hear from you, and there's lots to talk about today. We're back just after this.
The Crown.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back. Do you know, in the biz, sometimes we say it's a very quiet news day today, and it is a very quiet news day today. I mean, I'm looking for front pages, looking at stories, you know, it's a quiet news day when one of the stories that's, you know, sort of considered relatively big is that Ainsley Harriet's sister fell into a pond.
What?
Yeah, at the Chelsea Gardens or whatever it's called.
Chelsea Flower Show.
Chelsea, yeah. So he got upset his sister fell into a pond, and so he's not allowed to go there. I'm like, this is what I mean about a quiet news day. Apparently, you know, front page of the Sun is a footballer is having a rocky marriage. I mean,
which footballer?
Someone I've never heard of. Leandro Trossard.
Oh, okay.
So his wife has wiped all trace of him from her social media. That is front page news. Come on! Can someone do something, please? This is the frustration on a Sunday. But anyway, let's look at this. I do love the Daily Star. I consider it to be a national treasure. Some of the headlines are absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
but
it's not the Sunday Sport, though, is it? Let's be clear. It's not the best.
What I do know about the Daily Star is they have an issue with seagulls. They're always they are always moaning about seagulls. I'm sure if I flick through long enough, I will find a seagull story. But let's talk about this, which is what their front page lead is, which is basically the zombie apocalypse Labour Party chapter, where all sorts of characters are coming back from the dead.
Oh, yeah.
As the party appears to be in death throes, it's like, I've got the solution. Let's bring back Gordon Brown.
Yeah, and Harriet Harman.
Yeah, why?
Who next?
What do you make of this?
Peter
God
Mandelson.
help us all. Yeah, I know, right? Did you not learn your lesson? But what is the thinking here? Why are they bringing back? So first of all, they're bringing back Gordon Brown. Now, my take on this is because with all the uncertainty about leadership crises, the markets are going to go, ooh, Rachel Reeves hasn't got a clue what she's doing. If you look at the figures for government gilts, it is worse than when we had the sort of mini-budget moment. Of course, you know, mainstream media are not talking about that. And I think Gordon Brown's job is essentially going to be an interlocutor between people like the IMF and Sir Keir Starmer and try and steady the waters a bit.
Up to a point, but I think it's also about, you know, I joked about Peter Mandelson just there, but I think it's important to remember that Gordon Brown was perhaps the most vociferous critic of the appointment of Peter Mandelson in the first place, and he really put the boot in when the story sort of started to emerge. I think that it is about what you're saying, but I also think that there were better qualified people for that sort of position. What I think this is also about is a signal to his party that he's trying to make a clean break with that particular story, because that is the story that actually keeps coming back every couple of weeks and keeps on hurting him over and over again, because it's a constant question on his judgment. Whereas I think bringing back Gordon Brown, who was so poisonous about Peter Mandelson and has been vindicated so much, and also bringing back Harriet Harman. To be clear, Harriet Harman already had a similar role. He's just kind of rebranded it and now shoved her to the forefront as well. One of the major criticisms, of course, about Starmer with the Mandelson appointment from a lot of female Labour MPs was, what does this say about Sir Keir Starmer and how he views women? And, you know, this is a slap in the face of all the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and similar. So I think that it's as much about that, actually, because that story is going to keep coming round again and again. Every couple of weeks it dies away and then it comes back because there's a new revelation. I think it's about trying to say to his party, to his MPs, look, I am trying to separate myself from this legacy that Mandelson
But what's
has
interesting,
left us.
what does it say about the quality of the Labour Party? Because I don't know how many MPs they've got, 300, 400, something in that region. But if you've got, you know, hundreds of MPs and you're having to bring back people from 30 years ago?
Yeah. It's like the wrestling where they bring back some guy out of retirement and everybody's meant to go wild. It's like, oh my God, The Rock's come back or something like that, because, you know, the viewing figures are down. I mean, you can. I'm not sure it's fair to compare Gordon Brown to Dwayne Johnson.
Gordon Brown is The Rock.
But still, it's because, of course, where Sunak, when he brought back Cameron, and everybody went, oh, okay, interesting.
Weird,
It's a bit unexpected curveball. And Cameron, strangely, wasn't particularly bad at the job. Actually,
Actually, it was strange because I didn't like Cameron 1.0 much, but Cameron 2.0 was okay, actually.
I think the difference with that is increasingly in this country we get to a point where former prime ministers are viewed with a degree of respect as sort of elder statesmen. Cameron hadn't quite reached that stage yet because he wasn't sort of pontificating at every opportunity in the press and talking about how he would do things differently. He was still sort of seen to be a little bit more active. So I thought that worked to a degree that bringing back, say, Gordon Brown doesn't work, and this is why, of course, it's interesting that you see John Major wheeled out very often, especially by people who want.
Is he?
Yeah, he is. All
I've
the
not
time.
seen John Major for ages. Where's he been creeping around?
He pops up on the BBC every sort of 6 weeks or so. But almost always to talk about Brexit as well and how we have to rejoin.
Don't worry, Starmer's doing that.
But the thing with that is, I think you really run the risk of thinking, oh, John Major, Gordon Brown, whoever it was. Oh, I quite liked him. I quite liked him because he's better than what we currently have. But actually, if you bring them into active government, you do run the risk that everybody remembers why it was that they were booted out in the first place. So that's always going to be the problem. And this is, I think, why actually Gordon Brown has not been... It's not like he's been given an office of state or anything like that. He's been given a very sort of minor sort of symbolic role because they don't actually want him to get involved in politics.
It was a very, very weird thing. I don't know what the what the motivation was at all with that. We've got the King's Speech coming up. Like I said, it's all going to get tasty from Monday, isn't it? We've got the King's Speech coming up. But I think we can start supposing the sort of things that might be announced. And I think Starmer's going to go quite dramatic. I think, especially after the local election results, I think he's going to really try and lay down a marker. Now, the Mirror, obviously supportive newspaper, is saying that Starmer is planning to slash energy bills in a fight to turn around Labour's misfortunes, if you want to call it misfortunes. But, how on earth is he going to slash energy bills when Ed Miliband won't, move an inch, won't even move a millimetre away from his net zero agenda? And now, of course, the other thing is, in the King's Speech, we're anticipating Starmer's going to say, yes, we're going to get even closer ties with Brussels. Well, one thing we've already agreed with the EU, is to be dynamically aligned with their net zero policies, which actually want to go faster and further than our own.
I just think.
So how's he going to do this? How's he going to slash energy bills with all of that?
I just think it's tremendously short-sighted. This idea. The thing is, we were talking earlier, weren't we, about the possibility of a reform government and saying that even if they were to have a general election now, they wouldn't form the majority and they might have to be in coalition. OK, but on current trajectory, Reform are going to be the largest party at some point and probably large enough to form a government. So that's a party based entirely on the remnants of the Brexit Party, on the Eurosceptic movement. But let's say they had to form a coalition. Well, who would they be forming a coalition with? The Conservatives, the party that gave us Brexit. This idea that it's some sort of electoral brilliance to tie us closer to Europe and that's secretly what people want. You constantly hear this, don't you? People pretty nastily, I think, sort of, looking at demographic changes and going, well, the shifts have proven that actually it would be a rejoin majority if we were to have the referendum again.
Right.
And that's, of course, before you even put the question to the public, which is, this is what the EU would offer us this time around.
Right.
How would you like it? And it baffles me that the answer from so many people is to look at the political issue that caused such division in this country and caused half of the country to more or less lose their minds at the outcome and go, do you know what's going to unify us?
Let's bring that back. Let's resurrect some Brexit.
But on worse terms than last time.
Now,
that's the key thing.
Now, the Mirror are obviously going to have, I think, a bit of an inside line to number 10. It's going to be a preferred newspaper for the Prime Minister's aide to leak information to. And we're talking about the King's Speech, which is going to take place on Wednesday. And yes, according to the Mirror, the focus is going to be ever closer ties with Brussels. Again, this idea that I'm going to deal with cost of living. How? Probably more spend on welfare. But this is frightening. Apparently, he could potentially be announcing that we've joined the Youth Mobility Scheme. Now, this is one of those typical sort of Brussels things, which sounds nice, doesn't it? Oh, youth mobility. Oh, that's nice. Go to a gap year over in Germany. They'll all be coming over here to study, nuclear science and, gender studies or something. But when you dig into the details of the Youth Mobility Scheme, well, youth goes all the way up to about 30, and it's anybody. And I look at what Sanchez has just done in Spain.
Exactly.
And I look at those men, 500,000 of them, clamouring to get into their embassies to be given right to remain in Spain, Spanish citizenship. And guess what? they're under 30. And once they've got Spanish citizenship, and we suddenly go, oh, if you're an EU citizen under the age of 30, you can just come to Britain. Guess who's going to take us up on that offer?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the thing is, it was bad enough given levels of youth unemployment across Europe anyway, but this new policy announced by the Spanish government is just... I mean, it's catastrophic because they've done it very cynically, knowing full well that the majority of the people that they give that citizenship to or the right to remain to are not going to stay there. It's not going to be their problem. They're going to all head north. So, you know, there's a wickedness to that, frankly. But it does show you, I think, the short-sightedness of our government, because they are trying to spin this, and let's be very clear here, they're trying to spin this at sort of middle-class parents and young people, because, as you say, it's the perception that you'll have the right or the freedom to go on a bit of a jolly. But even when we were part of the free movement in Europe, even when we were part of all of these schemes, the number of Brits who actually went abroad on
because no one speaks foreign languages. It's a mad idea.
Even because people don't speak foreign languages. It's because there's no jobs. There's no jobs in the parts of Europe that people in the UK want to go to.
The rest of the EU is the land of milk and honey.
In the part of the EU that British people want to go to, there isn't the work, which is why when you walk around London, for those people not listening in London, you go into any restaurant, and I do mean any restaurant, the staff are all Italian. You travel around this city, the number of people who are Portuguese, Spanish and Italians here, and Greeks as well, who have come here, you know, and they are working minimum wage jobs because there simply isn't the work in their own countries. It's staggering, actually, to see the levels and to hear those languages sort of become de rigueur. Now, I'm not necessarily opposed to Spanish, Italian, Portuguese people being here, but the point is they're here because there isn't the work in their own countries. Right. So if you make it even easier for people to come from those countries, or, as you say, from North Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa, because the Spanish government's given them a magic visa.
If I was a 25-year-old Bangladeshi who's now magically Spanish all of a sudden, and I was thinking, right, how am I going to make the most money? I would head to Britain because of our welfare.
And just on top of that, underpinning all of this, we have record levels of youth unemployment in this country.
No,
it's
exactly.
Not just, when people say we need them to fill the jobs,
it's not
true.
No,
we don't.
I have just spotted something really scary in the mirror. I can't wait to tell you about it. But you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to wait a bit longer. Me. I'm going to make you wait a little bit longer. We're going to take a short break. But believe you me, I've just put a big circle around something that sends a shiver down my spine. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to tell you what it is after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Honestly, are you ready? Do you want to know what I've just spotted in the mirror? Page 7. So if you're Keir Starmer, like, I know what I'm going to do to make everyone like me again. Going to bring back Gordon Brown. Going to bring back Harriet Harman. Going to rejoin the EU because everyone's been demanding that one. Oh, yeah, going to import all those people from Spain who've magically now got EU citizenship. This is great. Not going to move an inch on net zero. This is really going to win everybody over. But do you want the icing on the cake?
Go for it. Oh,
so this is the view from inside number 10. Okay. Get this. I couldn't believe my eyes. The PM has been tipped to find a government job for Who do you think he wants to bring into cabinet?
Tony Blair.
No.
Oh, well.
It's actually even more ridiculous. Sadiq Khan! Are you kidding me?
Boy.
Are you kidding me? You think that's a recipe for popularity?
I'd take Tony Blair, frankly.
Basically, we join the EU, increasing immigration even more, and giving Sadiq Khan a cabinet job? You think that's going to make you popular? Oh, my goodness. Like, seriously.
What job would Sadiq Khan get? Does it say?
No, it just says it says to shore up his support.
What is
really?
he going to be? What's he doing? Like, is he going to be a bricklayer or something? Shore up support? Like, honest, no, seriously, I'm genuine. I want to know what it is that.
I want to know
what people, anybody listening to this, what do you think? Sadiq Khan would be good.
That's a good one. Get in touch with us. What job should Sadiq Khan get in cabinet?
If Gordon Brown can be the global finance envoy, what could Sadiq Khan
going to be? Right, do let us know.
Keep it clean.
On that. Let's do a call now. Let's speak to Pat, who's in Bangor. Hello, Pat. Which Bangor are you in? Are you in Wales, Bangor, or Northern Ireland, Bangor?
I'm in Wales, Bangor.
Oh, Bore to you then, Pat. How are you doing this morning?
Well, I'm just doing my usual morning chores and some bread baking and cakes and things, so just normal.
That's nice. You now live in the no longer one-party state of Wales, but the two-party state of Applied Labour Coalition. How do you feel about that?
Thank God. Thank God. I hardly dare get up and see what had happened on Friday, but it's a start. It's a good start, and the common sense needs to prevail, and we do need to start to work together, but with the right people.
Oh, so you actually are not you're a fan of Plaid Cymru?
No, I can't say I am. They've been here a long time, longer than me. These new politicians that are there are younger, and I'm hoping that they have a bit further sight than some of the old ones had.
Indeed. I mean, it's interesting. Plaid's one of those parties that sort of, again, it's vibesy. You know what I mean? It's sort of a bit, but I think if you dig into some of Plaid's policies, they make the Labour Party look right wing.
Yes. Yes, it is an experience to live here, and it has its good things, but you do have to reduce your options and future hopes. So living here is quite a manoeuvre to develop amongst the people.
I love that living here is a manoeuvre. What do you make of Starmer? Do you think he's going to be toast? Or when Starmer says, I am going to stay around for 8 more years, should we believe him?
I think Starmer has got some very powerful people behind him. And I feel quite sorry for the man because somewhere along the line he was radicalised and he's able to speak the speak. And he will follow instructions. He loves his paperwork, he loves his little speeches, and he absolutely loves to be among the European Union bunch. He has got himself into a position where, for some reason, they felt that we were all fairly entrenched in how we were being dealt with and what we were being handed out along the way, and it's showing more and more. I've watched him for a while thinking he really does appear to believe what he's saying, but we hear words that we're used to hearing that tell us that change is coming, but we never hear what change. He tells us that he has reduced the taxes, but he put them up first. So it's all cloak and daggers and smoke and mystery going on. He seems to have spent the last 6 or 7 months finding jobs for the boys, so they've got good pensions. He filled out the House of Lords. He's got people into positions where he thinks they will back him. And where they're comfortable, and I think he has some loyalties there that he wants to see through. But he, unfortunately, we've all been taken for saps because somewhere along the line they decided that we didn't listen, probably because they don't listen. They think that we don't think, probably because they don't think. They think common sense has gone by the by and we're just greedy people who want the handouts. There's been a great misjudgment of the British people.
I think they take us for granted, and I think you're right. I think they think we're all idiots as well, and that we don't notice some of the things they're doing. Pat, my darling, thank you ever so much for your call. Diolch yn fawr, as they say up in Bangor in North Wales. People are messaging in with some good Sadiq Khan messages. Some of them I can't read out.
I was going to say, can I hear those in the break?
Yeah, let's see. So, you know, he was saying, someone said, Starmer insisted on bringing Mandelson back from the dead. Now, Brown, Harman, what could possibly go wrong? Well, what could possibly go wrong is Sadiq Khan being in cabinet. What position might he get? I love the fact Simon's straight in there with American ambassador. Why not? He's such a fan of Donald Trump. Such a fan, you know, with the inflatable Donald Trump. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Over London.
That would be so entertaining to see Sadiq Khan having to go to the White House to offer his credentials. That would just be... Can you imagine the press conference? Do you remember when Mamdani went and he had to meet Donald Trump?
Yeah.
And Donald Trump was absolutely... He killed him with kindness, and it was brutal because Mamdani couldn't say a thing. He was just stood there going, oh my word, what have I walked into? That's what it would be like with Khan as well. It would be brilliant.
Joanna says he should be the immigration minister. Great. Sadiq Khan should be brought in to make the cups of tea. I'm not going to read exactly what you said, but I like the fact that someone's given him a nickname, Sadistic Khan. Excellent. Yeah. Minister for Disinformation. Second only to Starmer in the most hated man ever stakes. I mean, yeah.
I mean, okay, let's be clear. Hitler's a thing. Like, I don't want to go all Godwin Saw and bring it up, but I don't think you can say Starmer is the most hated ever. I think that's a little harsh.
That's quite a lot. Khan could keep Larry's cat litter clean.
Does Larry have cat litter? I thought he sort of roams around the place. He just seems a bit feral to me. I can't really imagine 10 Downing Street being so undignified as to have sort of an open cat litter just in the front of the Prime Minister's office.
I don't, but they don't really have... Oh, they have a garden at the back?
Yeah, they have a garden. I can't imagine that they'd have litter.
This is now the burning question of today. Where does Larry the cat do his business?
Can we send Sadiq to find out?
Yeah, exactly. That's what we need to know. Dial 03444991000 if you've got the answer. I'm losing the will to live with this government. Literally no words. Someone has messaged, I'm quite happy to put Sadiq Khan in the cabinet, lock the cabinet, put the cabinet in a rocket and send it to space. Right, my sentiments exactly. Right, we are going to take a short break now, but don't go anywhere because Benedict and I are going to be back just after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh, hello. We've got a little bit of newish news, which is another MP has called for Sir Keir Starmer to step down. I don't know, is this guy's called Josh Simons?
Yeah, I've heard of, but
well
don't know very much. But
I don't at all. He was a Cabinet Office Minister until March, and he is also joined a sort of growing chorus of voices saying that Starmer should go. Is it going to become like the Boris Johnson, when the herd moves, it moves? That is the question. I don't think it will.
It's tricky. What I would say is the fact that nobody has moved decisively yet, who is a known name, is symptomatic of one thing, and that's that all of the so-called big beasts know that they don't have what it takes. That whoever inherits this chalice, it will be poisoned. The only one who seems to really want it is Burnham, because he, I think, sees the opportunity, and it's a rare opportunity, to get back into frontline politics and to get this job. And I think he understands that if he has to wait, there's not going to be another leadership contest, and Labour will probably be out. So I think that's why he's the only one who's absolutely champing at the bit, because he knows he doesn't have another opportunity. Whereas I think everybody who is sitting on the inside, so to speak, and can see under the hood, is kind of sat there thinking, I'm not sure this is exactly what I want for me. This has come too early, the situation is too messy, and that's why they're all very sort of hesitant about it. But what does that say to the rest of the country? It tells the rest of the country that these people have no faith in themselves to do the job. And that's a damning indictment for a group of people whose raison d'etre is to take power.
Some of your messages, guys, I'm sorry, it's just making me smirk. Oh, come on, I'm not reading that. I'd love to see Khan in a cabinet, but can we stuff him first? That's quite good. Where there's another good one. Larry the cat performs his business within the area of the nature garden behind the Cabinet Office, says Stephen in London.
How do you know that, Stephen?
Also, we've got a bit of breaking news as well, which is repatriation flights are now taking off from Tenerife, where the MV Hondius, the hantavirus cruise ship, has come into dock in the early hours of the morning, and all 22 Britons who were aboard that ship are going to be brought back to the United Kingdom, but they will be quarantined in Arrow Park Hospital on Merseyside, which was the centre used to isolate travellers returning from Wuhan in China at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, that worked out well for us, didn't it? But there you go. Laura and I were discussing earlier, we're not too worried about hantavirus, although let's hope that's not famous last words. And very quickly, Benedict, I've spotted this story as well. Bring on the Belgian police. Let's do this. Bit of clapping for you, Belgian police, because the police chief in Belgium has called for a naval blockade after a surge in small boats leaving from Belgium. So he is called Christian de Ridder. And said the dinghies must not reach French waters. Once out of the Belgium's jurisdiction, the French typically focus on escorting the vessels back to British waters. And he said we have to stop them before they get to the UK. We have to find a way to stop them on the water. If we could put up a naval barrier so they don't get into French waters, everything would stop.
Are we sure that these are actually asylum seekers, or are they just Belgian citizens trying to flee Belgium? Because, you know, to be fair, whilst I'm the first person to sit here and say nobody fleeing France actually has a genuine claim to asylum because it's fine. Belgium, on the other hand, I would absolutely try and flee if I could.
I love the fact, though, that Belgium's like, we've got to stop the boats. I'm like, yes!
Yes, we have to keep our own citizens here. We don't want to, like, give up. That's the problem. I mean, you know this as well as anybody. You've been to Belgium a couple of times.
I lived there, my friend.
It is a country that has some particularly bad issues with immigration and with organised crime that's come as a result of that. I mean, it's in a much worse state than we are. Oh, what have you just seen now? What has somebody sent to you? Can you read it out? Are you able to read it? No, you're not.
No, there's a few. Someone just said he looks like, I've lost it now, but he looks like a villain in Thunderbird, Sadiq Khan.
Oh, I thank God it's Sadiq Khan and not me.
And this one, I do... Oh, gosh.
Can we do, like, with the puppet hands?
No, but this is...
walking from here to
This is from Paul in Hitchin. Paul in Hitchin, for some reason, knows I've got absurd humour and I'm going to delight in this. He said, dear. Morning, Alex and Arbuthnot. If Satanic Khan is brought back into government, the cat litter tray is the best place for him. Oh, Arbuthnot. I'm sorry, that's absolutely classic.
Next time I'm here, we'll do that as a quiz. We'll do that as a question. What name would you give me if it were not Benedict, Dominic, Sebastian, or indeed Arbuthnot? You know, keep them clean again. I know you won't be able to, but please come up with your most outlandish Old English, Norse, or Latin name, and let's see if it fits. It could be quite fun.
Name that man. It's the new special segment on a Sunday. Anyway, sticking with Sunday tradition, we're going to go to a break now, but you know who's lying in wait on the other side. It isn't Arbuthnot. not Dominic Sebastian Benedict I. It is Mr. Paul Cox. We're going to be bringing you some of the more absurd stories from the news, but also keeping you up to date with all of the breaking that's beginning to happen. So don't go anywhere, because we're back just after this. Put the kettle on. See you in a mo.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to the show. You've dropping something already. What are you doing?
Chucked a pen at myself.
At the corner of my eye.
It's one
Literally within the first few seconds of you being here, you've done something bizarre. I love, by the way, your messages now. This is really cheering me up, can I just say? Not that I was unhappy, but this game of let's rename Benedict Spence is like getting out of control. We've got Claudius Arbuthnot's Higginbotham. Or just Claude, says Dave in Dorset. Simon Barnes, he says Alex and Ethelred Spence. Why is it that there is this thing that every time Benedict Spence is here, everyone messages in going, Dominic? I don't know why.
I guess there's an essence of Dominic about him, but Benedict's more befitting. I mean, that accent. I've not met many Dominics with his accent, really. I mean, it's BBC English. He's very good. I'm always glad to come on after him because you really do get the the mix, you know, the demographic mix. I come on, everyone's just about ready for me after Benedict.
Now, we were talking earlier that it's what one calls a slow news day. There's not much knocking about in the print press today, believe you me. We are keeping an eye, by the way, on what's going on in Spain. There's a news conference at the moment, and apparently the WHO says that all evacuated passengers are asymptomatic. Well, yes, WHO. Apparently it turns out that the... what's it called when you wait to get ill? The
incubation period.
Thank you.
When you wait to get ill. Life. They call that life.
I'm really tired today, and you know you just lose words sometimes. For some reason I was going to call it the nourishment time. That's
Ooh,
what
yummy.
it is. But apparently the incubation period is about 8 weeks. So, you know, the fact that all evacuated passengers are asymptomatic isn't necessarily reassuring. But we do know that 22 Brits are on board...
I mean, I wish them well,
Envy
Alex,
Hondius.
but it looks, the whole thing's harrowing. Have you seen the boat? When they showed the boat, I was like, that does not look like... I mean, they went from Argentina to Cape Verde on what looks like a boat that has already sunk once and been brought back up again. And then they got the hantavirus, which no one has ever heard of, and now they're not allowed to dock anywhere, and they've got a quarantine till about 2037.
Out of nowhere yesterday, I started calling it Dirty Boat, and it started to catch on. Someone messaged me saying, I've got the solution for Dirty Boat. Send it to the Bermuda Triangle. But no, I mean, look, in all honesty, it sounds like an absolutely horrible virus. We don't believe that it's particularly transmissible. Let's hope not, because it sounds dreadful. And in terms of hantavirus, no one even knew it existed. Well, Joanna in Salisbury knew it existed.
Of course she did.
Yeah. She knows everything, Joanna. I reckon she's at Porton Down, your old gaff.
If I've ever got a mole or a lump, I'll go to Joanna in Salisbury and say, I'll send her a DM.
So she says a version of hantaviruses have been in the UK for years. Farmers and farm workers often get them, known as Wheels disease or hemorrhagic fever with renal syndrome. Yeah, that sounds great. There you go.
None of it sounds great.
No one wants that.
It's awful. I mean, you've got to have very close proximity as well, so the boat sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's... I mean, also, can I just say, who goes on it? Because apparently this cruise was blimmin' expensive, you know, going down around some niche islands that no one's ever heard of. I think it's about 30, 40 grand a ticket or something. And what I can't fathom is, you know, you spent 30 grand to go on this once-in-a-lifetime cruise. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the rubbish heap. I'm going to go to the tip in Argentina to look for birds.
Is that where it came from? Was that because it's rats?
Yeah. So apparently, you know, there's some sort of special niche avian options on the Argentinian landfills, and so people went to look for them, and that's where they think the rat fecal matter had come from.
Slightly suspicious. I don't, not of the story, just of people who go on cruises, really, because I like the idea of a cruise, but essentially that's a ferry from Argentina to Cape Verde, and I don't know. I mean, it's not for me, Alex. Is it for you, cruising? Is that for you?
Not anymore. I mean, you've had that one that crashed into the rocks. I can't remember what that thing was called.
That was in Italy, wasn't it? That's where the pilot...
Costa Concordia.
Yeah,
that's it.
He jumped off, didn't he, and got a life sentence, essentially.
It was basically a cruise ship hit and run.
With his but he was like, whoopsie.
There's that one. Apparently there's another cruise ship knocking about which has norovirus on it. During COVID, it was all, you know, everyone's got that on the cruise ships. Yeah. As far as I can tell, they're just sort of like, you know, water-bound Petri dishes. Isn't that exactly what I was going to say? So, no, I have been put off cruising, if you will. Bayern's messaging, going, Benedict's name is bad, thanks, but not nearly as bad as the comic genius with a name that sounds like an aggressive chat-up line. I'm assuming he means you.
Definitely talking about me.
Love it. So I've been looking through the papers for some important stories for us to talk about today.
Yeah.
And this one in the Daily Star, which is the most sort of highbrow read.
It is for me.
It is, I love it. So apparently, this is a stunning headline. Bread letter day for Sani. Half of us are eating more sandwiches than we did a year ago.
Yeah, that's because nobody can afford food anymore. Right? So they're just making sandwiches.
It's just a strange, you know, so it goes on that people are increasingly eating this lunch staple for breakfast or for dinner. There's better quality sandwiches now, more variety. 2/3 of those under 34 said they ate sarnies more often than they did. Along with 2/3 of Londoners, 3 in 5 children, said they opt for the favourite when away from home. Yet despite the huge increase in the type of bread and fillings on offer, 2/3 always buy the same type. This is mind-blowing research.
It is mind-blowing. And I've got... finally, I was saying this before we come on air, at least someone's done it. Someone's had the guts to do the sandwich research. Look, I'm a sandwich eater. Look at me. I love a sandwich. I'm a man on the move. I've eaten... I can tell you every sandwich you can buy between here and Hampshire. No worries. And I've eaten most of them as well. I do love an M&S. If anyone's looking to sponsor me.
There are other sandwiches available.
Yes. But I'm not surprised. It was a staple of my youth as well. Every school meal consisted of a sandwich that my mum had made me, and if I dared to tell her I liked something, then that was the sandwich I got for a good 6 years. So, you know, there was one time I said I liked pâté, which was quite incredible for a man of my class at that time. Yeah.
Your pâté sandwiches at school, cut off, please.
I had a pipe. And I was eating pâté sandwiches. But look, I'm not surprised at all. I think it's a very convenient food. It's a very British food, I think.
It is very British. I love a sandwich and all that.
And that's why I support it. But as I alluded to rather unseriously, I think there's a lot about this that is people preparing food because they can't afford to eat on the road anymore.
Well, also a lot of people are just sort of, you know, on the move all the time.
Yeah,
it's portable. We've got to get off the sandwich chat.
Okay,
I mean, let's go back to politics, because I dug around and I found in the Mirror that there's talk of Sir Keir Starmer. This is apparently a scoop from inside Number 10, according to the Mirror. There's talk of Starmer. I lost his name then. Starmer giving Sadiq Khan a job in the cabinet.
This is incredible news. If that was true, if it does turn out to be true, it will be even more ridiculous than giving Gordon Brown a place back in government. Sadiq Khan is very much the most divisive politician I can think of that's operating in the UK right now. Even outside of Keir Starmer, he's both liked and loathed inside London, but outside of London, he is almost universally loathed. He has done nothing beneficial to London. I can't see what he would add to the cabinet. I worked for TfL for 12 years, and I worked under Boris and I worked under Sadiq Khan, and I can tell you that there was night and day between the two. Once Sadiq Khan was in, it was all unconscious bias training and the ilk. And do you know there was a moment at TfL where people were told if they didn't do all this compulsory training to make them a better human, they would just be marked down at a yearly appraisal, irrespective.
Really?
Irrespective. Yeah, you would get you wouldn't even get a meets expectation. You would get the one below that, whatever it was, requires improvement or whatever.
No, because you'd not done
because you hadn't done these trainings, which is essentially shaping people. It's not saying you are good at your job. It's not saying this is how to get better at your job. It's saying we need you to look exactly like this, and that is led by someone like Sadiq Khan. And to have him in the cabinet, I think would be a disaster.
I think it really would be a disaster. But the thing is, you know, with all this crazy woke DEI stuff, you always think we've reached the peak now. Things can't get more ludicrous, but they can.
Here you go.
Because. Wait for this, again, from my favourite newspaper of them all. Literature lovers, I consider myself one of those. I did literature at university. They're urging people to stop using anti-book language.
What is anti-book language?
I'm glad you asked, because apparently, throw the book at him and don't judge a book by its cover. The people want to ban this because, or let's close the book on this case. I've never.
Oh my goodness.
Never heard that. My week is fully booked. I don't know. What?
My week is. I'm not. Oh my God.
Are we considering books sentience now that the books are being offended by anti-book language? Like, what is going on? Who comes up with this mad stuff?
Well, absolute nutters is the answer to that. That direct question. Look, I'll be the first person to say people should read more books and perhaps watch less short videos on YouTube to get all of their information. However, there's nothing anti-book about any of those terms. The person that's come up with that is not really reading books, I would say, because none of those terms actually lend themselves to being anti-book. Also, no one has ever said one of those terms and think, well, now I've said that, I'm not reading a book again for another month. And you know, these stories. You and I talk about the news very often. It's our job to do so, so we must. And these stories come up once a month. these type of stories, policing language.
There are people out there with real-world jobs coming up with this stuff and probably on, more than minimum wage. It's absolute madness. Talking about madness, I don't know if you've seen this story. When you just think, how much more clown world can the country get?
Surely not much more, Alex.
Well, all the anti-book language knocking about, who knows? But there's a Tamil immigrant up in Scotland, transgender Indian immigrant, who goes by the name of Q Manivanan, who identifies as non-binary, and he's been elected as an MSP on the Edinburgh and Lothian's East list for the Scottish Green Party, and he doesn't even have a visa. He doesn't even have a proper, right to stay here visa. He came over on a student visa, and he's now appealed to colleagues for 2,000 of funding to grant him a temporary graduate visa. Well, don't worry about that, because he's now going to earn £77,000 elected to Holyrood. Like, what? That's a bit like me going over, because I used to live in Tamil Nadu, right? It's a bit like me going back over there to Madurai and being like, right, get my little holiday visa. I'm like, right, I'm standing for election. Like, this is madness.
It's utter madness, and I think it's a shame that it's you and I talking about it, and not some other more mainstream outlet, because and I'm glad that we are, but I think more people need to understand this, because this is always framed as kind of racism or bigoted in some way if we were to question this. But we must remember, okay, this is the epitome of green politics. The politics that doesn't stand for anything that we're concerned by. And what I mean by we, I mean the British people. What is that guy going to be able to do to enhance local politics without any experience of local life? And the fact that he is a literally walking tick box of all the a smorgasbord of all the things that you would hope to see in a green candidate. I really don't understand this. Okay, I get quite squeamish when people talk about, oh well, if you weren't born in Britain, etc., you can't stand. But the more we see of these candidates, the more I realise that actually we do need British politicians for British issues. I'm not saying that there can't be any foreign nationals. In fact, Catherine West, who I'm sure we might get onto, you've spoken to today. About
Catherine West.
She was born in Australia.
But this is the thing. What I find so egregious about all of this, I love the word egregious, is the Green Party up in Scotland are pro-independence. So
From
this
what?
guy from the UK.
Yeah, I understand. My question isn't is rhetorical. But it's like from England only.
I'm sorry, but how dare you? How dare you come over here as a guy from South India and then say, right, it's going to break up the United Kingdom. Scotland should leave. I mean, I'm sorry. The very audacity. Well, he's made a little speech. Has Dr. Q Manivanan, who's the transgender Tamil immigrant whose pronouns are they, them.
Of course.
And he says, I am to some in this country everything that the hateful despise. I am standing here as your MSP now with care. They say politics is the art of the possible. A politics of care expands what is possible for everyone left behind, pushed out, or never invited in. What is that word, Soup?
Well, it is a complete word soup. And the word care keeps cropping up. It's not accidental. It keeps cropping up with Green candidates, people adjacent to Green candidates.
Be kind, right thing
exactly.
to do.
Nadia Sawala's husband.
Oh, we're going to come on to her.
I know we're going to come on to her, but some of the breakdown video, and I'm calling them breakdown videos, I do wish her well, because it's quite clearly she's gone down a rabbit hole and she can't find her way back. But I heard her talking about her husband and Green candidates in and around London, and how there can be politics of care, politics of kindness. Sure. But what makes you think that's only generated from one part of the political spectrum? And by the way, kindness for kindness' sake is not kind. When you're in politics, actually your role isn't to be...
How is it possibly remotely kind to allow a man who's got extreme fetishes to put on a dress and go into a little girl's changing room? I mean, come on, this stuff is madness.
Yeah,
should we take a call?
Yeah, why not?
Let's do it.
Let's speak to them.
Let's speak to them. Let's speak to Mark, who's in Birmingham. Hello, good afternoon, Mark. How are you?
Good afternoon, Alex. How are you?
I'm very well. Right, what do you want to talk about, Mark?
OK, I just wanted to say that I think that the Reform win is outstanding. And I think what it shows is that all the people, and I'm talking about the indigenous people of the country who lived here for years, finally, they have spoken, and they've showed everybody that what is happening in politics is not being done for them. But the problem is, what we've got Tony Blair's left-wing mechanism, Home Office, you name it, Border Patrol, everything in place. And until we remove that and put in an effective system that's going to protect the indigenous population, then, we've got a big fight on our hands.
I think we did. By the way, Paul and I exchanged a glance because you had a very squeaky door behind you. It added like a nice dramatic effect. It's sort of like a
haunted house. Is
yeah,
what it was.
right. I think, I don't know. Who knows what's going on at Mark's house? But look, let's talk about... Oh, we have to talk about the blooming local elections. Yes, we do.
Yeah,
I don't know, I'm having a conversation with myself about this. But, what did you make of the reform result? Was it, we all knew they were going to... Well, I did, that they were going to win... the most. For me, my take home is if this was a general election, they wouldn't have won enough for a majority. It's good, but it's not good enough. I mean, that's not to detract from the great success. But when you look in political terms, and, Mark's calling us from Birmingham, which is going to be an absolute bin fire, although, your bins don't get collected. But it's, there's no overall control. Reform can't exactly go, I know, let's form a coalition with this pro-Gaza cohort over here. I mean, is it going to be ungovernable?
Well, good afternoon, Mark. And I share Mark's sentiment, and I feel for people like Mark. Feel, Mark, sometimes that you are living in a foreign country, because all we see in the media from Birmingham, just look what happened with Lewis Goodall last week when he took his little podcast to Birmingham and caught a cold, essentially. I had a wake-up moment to what's going on there. I agree with you, Alex, but one thing I would temper it with is this local election is too early to tell. I don't think there's... I'm hoping there isn't a general election this year. I think if you are in the camp of wanting popular right-wing politicians running this country again to restabilise the ship, it's going to be very difficult to achieve that in 2026, because I don't think the journey has quite gone far enough yet. Should we get into 2027?
You sounded like, journey's not gone far enough. You sound like old Dr. Manivan all of a sudden here. The care journey.
Yes.
The Liverpool pathway.
But I genuinely don't think that reform are quite ready, but it's fantastic to see. And what I mean by that is we're going to end up with this soup of sort of maybe even Tories, restore and reform being required to come together at some point if there was a general election in the next couple of months, let's say. But Mark's right. I think it's good, and he used the term indigenous people, which is about the safest term you can use at the moment. I've seen people call in to talk and use other terms and almost get in trouble for suggesting that that's the case, because let's face it, we do have indigenous British people, and and why wouldn't they have a voice? And the idea that when they share that voice now they're immediately criticised for talking about that is remarkable. There isn't another country on earth where people are embarrassed with their flag, people are embarrassed where they come from,
and then they just invite someone over on a student visa to stand for election from the other side of the world.
It just doesn't make sense. So I share Mark's sentiment. I share the sort of slight nervousness around reform that you were talking of, but I think ultimately we're going to see us grow, and by us I mean the popular right, grow into a more formidable force, and this is just the beginning.
Right, there you go. Mark, thank you ever so much for your call. I got a little bit of update, some bit of breaking for you. Hantavirus, a British patient, is being treated on the island of Tristan da Cunha. We know that the army have had to parachute in medical supplies. I think he disembarked from Hondius. That name is just because it's not a normal word. I really struggle with it. Envy Hondius. I think it disembarked and stayed on the island, but he is being treated. So we'll let you know more as and when we get more information. And there is more on whether Starmer will stay or go. Of course, former Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell has waded into this. Is he still in the Labour Party, or did he get booted out with Corbyn? I don't know.
I think he's still in the Labour Party. He's very much in that left-wing corner.
But he is not for Catherine West's approach in sort of putting herself forward as leader to try and precipitate a leadership election. He says he recognises she is reflecting the upset in her constituency, but he doesn't think it's the right approach. We need to discuss how we go forward. I worry some of the shadows want to exploit her concerns and bounce us before we have a proper democratic process. So there you go. This is the interesting thing. I don't think this is going to be the sort of head of steam when everyone started turning against Boris Johnson. And that's the thing about the left. They always end up being a lot more disciplined than the right wing. Internally.
Yes, I guess it is discipline. I mean, I think in 130 years or whatever it's been, they've never ousted a leader in this manner. But I would say that in that 130-year history, they've also never had a leader quite this bad, quite this unpopular. Now, at what point does it become, I don't know, almost treasonous to stay in office when absolutely nobody wants you at all? Because you can't. How can you have a man leading a country by his own agenda without support from anybody?
Well, I don't know. I can think of a few people around the world who like doing that. But, do you think he's offering Sadiq Khan potentially a position in cabinet? Because, we all sort of focus on Andy Burnham. Well, he might quit, he might stand as an MP so that he can become Prime Minister. And apparently, sources from the Burnham camp are saying he's identified the constituency in the north of west of England. This is going to happen. I think we can guess that it might be Bootle. But actually, no one's thought about Sadiq Khan. And so the fact that seemingly Starmer's going to offer him some sort of cabinet position, maybe Khan was sitting there thinking, I know, I could have a run.
Well, I don't think...
He's an ambitious man.
Well, he is an ambitious man. That's all I'll say on that. And but I don't believe in a month of Sundays that Keir Starmer would offer anyone a cabinet position that had their sights on the Premiership at all. He's a selfish man. He's politically... I don't... It's quite manipulative, is what I'd say Keir Starmer is, because of his background, and he's protecting his position well. I don't think that if he thought for a minute that Sadiq Khan had aspirations for his job, that he would invite him into the cabinet at all. But wouldn't it just make politics absolutely fascinating if we had Prime Minister Khan?
You kind of think to yourself, how much worse can it be? Well, that. Right, we're going to take a short break. Keep your thoughts coming in, by the way. 03444991000 is the number if you want to call us. It's your normal network rate. The gorgeous Rory is today fielding your calls. He'll take down your details and patch you through to the studio. That is also the number for WhatsApp. You can also send me a text message, 87222. Remember to like the word talk before you text. Back after this.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Alrighty, what should we discuss next, Paulio? Let's talk, because you mentioned earlier, Nadia Sawalha. So her partner, Mark Adderley, has been elected as a Green Party councillor in Croydon, despite having been suspended. I mean, like, there have been people who don't have a visa to be here being elected. People have been suspended from the party being elected. Get the basics right. What's going on in their administration system? But this is, the husband of the Loose Women presenter is under investigation over anti-Semitic comments. I don't really know much about this story, but apparently that, she's been dropped from the TV show. Was she making videos with her husband or something?
I think she's definitely made. It's kind of fascinating watching. It's disturbing, really, because whenever you see anybody that quite obviously is having a bit of a mentee bee, as the kids say.
Is that a thing, mentee bee?
Yeah, I think it is. I'm not sure. I'm not a Gen Zer. I'm actually a Gen X, I think. So I'm miles off. But look. She's entitled to her opinion. You and I are both free speech advocates. She's entitled to her opinion. She shares her opinion. But when her opinion moves away from fact, and when her opinion moves into the sort of what I would consider fairly dangerous rhetoric, when you consider what's happened in North London, and I think the way they enable themselves to do this, and if you watch any of these particularly far-left communicators, the Gaza people, that throughout any one of their monologues, they will say this at least once. We need to make sure that people don't confuse Zionism with anti-Semitism. Because in order for them to reveal themselves and it not be considered hate speech, which would be their term, not mine, they need people to believe that those two things can't be correlated. And unfortunately for them, 90-odd% of Jews are also, by proxy, Zionists because they support Israel. So you are being anti-Semitic if you are talking down Israel in the way that you are.
But this is what is so crazy about all of this. So apparently this guy, the husband of Nadia Sawalha, Mark Adderley, he says it's not anti-Semitic at all to blame Israel for the Bondi Beach terror attack. This was Jewish people, including kids, on their holy day, on the, I can't remember which festival it was. Was it Yom Kippur? Or
it was Yom Kippur, I think, yes.
Being massacred. And he blames Israel. I mean, I'm sorry, and he's saying that's not anti-Semitic. He doesn't think it's anti-Semitic to compare Israel to Nazi Germany. And what is so crazy about all of this stuff is there he is, he's now elected. Yes, it's a local councillor, but again, I don't understand how we've got to this stage. I do know how we've got here in the UK. I don't know how we put the genie back in the bottle. Do you know what I mean? It's week after week after week of, recognising Palestine, free Palestine, the Gaza marches. Even Starmer joining in with this idea that there's been a genocide, or that there's, I don't think he actually said that, but that, he's gone along with the idea that Netanyahu is wanted for war crimes. And you then go, right, so that,
It's never been officially determined that there is a genocide in Gaza. This is something that was said in one UN document and has been perpetuated endlessly by one section of the political scene. And you know what? I said it again, they're entitled to their opinion. And I've actually said on social media that I wish her well, by which I mean I wish her well with her journey back to good mental health, because I think that everything she's done, if you take the time to watch some of her videos, psychologically she's not, I don't think, where she needs to be. Lots of overly dramatic stuff, and but the trouble is when you back yourself into a corner, all you're going to do is become more and more cognitively dissonant. You cannot. You cannot be spoken to at that point. So both of them, the fact that they're together as a partnership in one place, they're both, I think, becoming problematic together. So I do wish them well. But the idea that you can blame Israel for Jews being slaughtered on a beach in Australia by an Islamist is unwell.
I mean, it's crazy, basically blaming Jews for Jews being killed as if it's been deliberately set up for what end? What, to make Muslims look bad? It's just, it is madness. It is madness. Talking about madness. So this story I don't get. This is a very us one, by the way. So, British school children have been allowed to use gender-neutral pronouns in GCSE French lessons, provoking an international row with France. So this is Edexcel, apparently, want to make language lessons more inclusive. Woke changes to the curriculum come despite the French not using gender-neutral pronouns themselves. So as part of the move, the French pronouns for he and she, il and elle, have been replaced with newly created neutral pronoun, yel. I literally had Laura Ferrari, his friend, Nigel Farage's other half here for the first hour.
Great chat,
and she's like, you know, this stuff doesn't really exist in France because they have gendered language. You know, you have the masculine or the feminine. I'm sorry, but this is... You're learning a foreign language. Yes. You don't get to change it. You don't be like, I know, I'm going to give Italian lessons. And this is how you say, would you like a cup of tea in Italian? Bingo, bongo, doodly, doodly, da. Hey! And you don't get to change the language when you're teaching a language. It's not a thing.
You've covered it all incredibly well. It is a gendered language, so therefore... And by the way, this is coming from the people that would say we need to protect other people's cultures, and they're the one dismantling it. The reason they're dismantling it is very 1984. They created their own newspeak, because at the end of the day, most people understand that the transgender debate is actually pretty much scientifically... nonsensical. It makes no sense biologically. So in order to bring people on board that are right thinking, they've got to change. And by the way, I don't mean right politically, I mean just right thinking. They've got to change the language. And they're even having to change foreign language to make people believe that this is normal. It's far from normal. And there will be a time where we look back, maybe even 100 years from now, and we study this period and say, how on earth did they get there?
Like
that's exactly why that ended.
I'm trying to sit here and try and understand how this would even come into play. So, you know, this is GCSE French, where, by and large, what you're saying is je m'appelle, où est la piscine, things like that. Je voudrais un billet, s'il vous plaît, etc. In what world are you then using gender-neutral pronouns? Because you're using it when you're talking about someone else. Are you just going to like Bridget Macron? I don't know, sorry, bad joke. But are you therefore imposing gender? Are you taking someone's gender away from them? If you're like, you know, if I'm suddenly talking in French about you, Paul Cox, and I start using this il instead of il, I mean, I don't even understand how this could even be remotely applied.
No, because you're right of mind. And look, this is, as I say, very Orwellian. This is newspeak, and you know what? If the people that have put this in place could hear us now, I'm sure they'd say we had wrongthink, and there would be, you know, speech police sort of saying Alex and Paul have got it entirely wrong, because it makes no sense. So they have to change the language. I'm not surprised the French are up in arms about this, because why you can't take their language and educate it in Great Britain in a wrong way.
Exactly.
You can't do that.
Now, did you, by the way, do you remember how to say I would like a cup of tea in Italian?
No.
You weren't paying attention.
No. Well, I think
D-grade to you.
Didn't you say that you said all sorts of? You said like ungo bungo or something, and I thought that's not right.
Talking about the French, here we go. So there's a man in France called Thomas Grandreny. EL, no doubt. He's an activist. And he's been coaching illegal migrants to call 999 from the channel. So he's making some sort of film which is backed by French taxpayer cash. And he's been telling asylum seekers that the UK will come to the rescue if they launch themselves in dangerous dinghies towards Dover. Now, he's a director, and his movie's called Tomorrow UK, Inshallah, which premiered in Calais on Thursday night. In behind-the-scenes clips, he is seen talking to would-be boat migrants. He asked, do you know how it works? When you're in the middle of the sea, you call 999, then UK rescue will come. Now, this documentary was produced in participation with the French taxpayer-funded channel France 3. I mean, the French, like, where do they get off? Just reading in the Mail today, good old Belgian police say, right, we need a naval blockade. Boats must not be able to go from Belgium to France because they'll end up going to the UK. Why can't the French have that mindset?
Well, they're getting billions of UK pounds and taxpayer pounds to stop it, and all we get every now and again is maybe a video of someone bursting a boat and then a video later of them being taken off by the human rights police to be sanctioned somewhere. And they're not doing anything. It's a Ponzi scheme, and we need a government on this side. I don't care what France or Belgium are doing. Good on Belgium, by the way. But I don't care what they're doing. It's what we're doing. There's a midpoint somewhere in the channel where it becomes English. And, and at that point, as soon as they enter there, if you know that, and this is very difficult, the RNLI are coming for a lot of steak, and therefore the emergency services are too, but if you know that they are playing the game, then don't be part of the game. All you have to do is do it properly once. As soon as you do it properly once,
I've always said
they won't do it
just
again.
The optics of one boat turning around would send such a message that, you know, why take the risk? So there you go. Well, people don't want to sort this out.
No, they don't.
I love this. Surely if these kids go to France and try and use gender-neutral pronouns when speaking French, I hate to think what the reaction is that they will get. I think the French will just think they can't really speak French, probably.
Yeah.
Right, let's take a short break, but after the break I want to do some calls and read out more of your messages. So please do get in touch. 03444 499 1000 is the number. It's your normal network rate. You can also use that number to send me a WhatsApp message, 82722 on the text. Like the word talk before you text. We're back after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back. Shall we do a cheeky little call there, Paul?
Let's do a cheeky call.
Paul.
Call Paul. Let's do a new jingle. Call Paul.
Call Paul. Right, let's meet to Grace, who is in London. Good morning to you, Grace.
Good afternoon to you.
Oh, yeah, good afternoon. I'm sorry, I am very tired today. Good afternoon to you, Grace. Thank you for the very polite and delicate correction. I needed it.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Indeed it does. Indeed it does.
So many things. Did you manage to get hold of your Trump Bible that you wanted? I found that you can buy them on eBay. I saw you talking about that about a week and a half
Donald
ago.
Trump Bible. Do you know what? This was because I don't.
what is a Donald Trump?
Right, exactly.
Do they replace Jesus with Trump?
Exactly. In his dreams. So we often get Adam Coleman on. He's a brilliant American journalist, and Adam and I have sort of, become good friends. And I can't remember, he was talking about how apparently in America, Donald Trump bought his own special edition Trump Bible.
Wow.
I have to say, as a Christian, I am not massively pleased with Trump trying to make money by selling copies of the Bible with his name on them.
No, I can't say I find it as a particularly glowing endorsement, but there you go.
If people are going to read the Bible more by buying it, then that's great. And you can get it in pink, and I thought you might appreciate that.
I really would. I like all things pink. Phone pink, dress pink, skin pink.
I had a pink Bible, but my pet rabbit nibbled it. Also, I was thinking about, and I will just say as an addendum that Trump doesn't seem to be behaving in a very Christ-like manner, so people shouldn't look to him for inspiration. But if they want to read the actual Bible, then that's great. But I was thinking yesterday when you were talking to an American guest whose name I can't remember.
Steve Gill. Former White House advisor, Steve Gill. We love Steve Gill.
He was saying that there might be something about dimensions and aliens which also might be considered in the Bible.
This is our kind of stuff, isn't it, Paul? I'm relaxing into this one.
Welcome, Grace.
Yes, so here we go. Yes, it was, because we talked about the UFO disclosure yesterday. You'd have loved it. We had a ufologist on. We were talking about, what's going to be revealed. And yeah, so Steve Gill was talking to us about it. And this idea of what are these phenomena? Is it aliens? Is it something related to something biblical? Angels, demons? Is it time travelers? Is it the fact that humans from the future now know how they can sort of move between dimensions? It's just fascinating. Anyway, what's your take, Grace?
Well, I don't have enough of a take because I've really not been studying the whole UFO thing enough. When I was a small child, UFOs are the thing I was most scared of, and I'm not scared anymore, but I don't give them much thought either. But it just brought to my mind something I'd heard someone called, I'm going to mispronounce this, apologies to French people, Michel Yves Bollot say a little while ago about how in a way there's a parallel between God and aliens in the sense that God is beyond our current experience of life. He's kind of out there. He's actually far greater than the universe, far more than aliens could ever be. But people are really keen to believe in aliens, and yet a lot of people reject the idea of believing in God. And he, as a scientist, has written about how actually science really demonstrates that.
I have his book at home. I haven't read it yet. I thought it might be that chap. Yes, he sort of talked about the scientific proof for God's existence, and he approached the subject expecting to say, there you go, God can't exist, and ended up going down completely the other route. But it is fascinating. Apparently in America, pastors have claimed that they've been called up by the Department of War or something, which are the ones releasing this information and told, well, you better prepare your congregations because, this is going to affect them. And I don't know how you feel about this, Grace, as a Christian, but I don't see how it affects Christianity at all. The Bible says God created the universe, so, well, there could be all sorts of other things in the universe that we as humans don't know about. How does that change anything? I don't understand why this idea that there could be intelligent life that is not of earthly origin somehow changes the whole, message of the Bible. I don't get why that's a threat.
It doesn't, and I think, the fundamental thing about Christianity is to choose to genuinely commit to following Christ, and there's no reason that aliens existing or not existing should change that. I think some people might think that because aliens don't seem necessarily to be mentioned in the Bible, then that might be an issue, but the Bible doesn't need to tell us absolutely everything. And I think that in the Middle Ages, people wanted to think everything just revolves around us. We are the only things that matter, and it's this kind of almost hubristic thing about thinking that we as human beings could only we could be the only humans, the only living creatures who have consciousness and who matter. So the aliens might conflict with that, but we are actually called as human beings not to be hubristic. We need to have humility.
Yeah. Do you know what's interesting actually? So J.D. Vance who is a Catholic, isn't he?
Yeah.
But sort of, you know, a relative newcomer to religion. I think he is of the belief system that you know, the extraterrestrial phenomenon are demons. I don't know how people got to that conclusion. I find that really bizarre.
I have heard other people speculating that.
Yeah.
I think my only I don't know, quandary would be, from a scientific perspective, that the universe is completely enormous, obviously, but still I'm not quite sure about what the odds are of finding life anywhere nearby, because the conditions necessary for life are so incredibly specific.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about this. We could really talk about this subject and go into, you know, multiple different avenues and lots of depth. But it's a tangent I wasn't expecting, I must admit. So I'm going to sort of leave this discussion here, because people might just be listening at home going, "What? This is what?" But Grace, thank you ever so much. It's a really interesting conversation. Someone's message saying, "I wish they'd just stop being cryptic and come out and tell us what's going on." That's kind of how I feel about this. It's like, stop messing with us.
I mean, what a great call from Grace, by the way. But yeah, I think people who believe that aliens would kind of undermine everything about a Christian's faith have never been a Christian, you know, because you've just answered the question beautifully, which is, well,
what changes?
Nothing changes at all. At all, you know, it wouldn't have. And the idea that things exist beyond our realm of comprehension, of course, is true. The idea of faith is that it's faith. We don't know, you know.
Right.
I think there requires a lot of faith in science, because science is continually changing.
This idea that people go follow the science, and I'm like, well, when they followed the science back in, you know, the time of was it Galilei, or one of those, or Copernicus, I forget, who's like, you know, actually the Earth goes around the sun, and then the Catholic Church made him recant it, and then we find out, oh, actually, guess what? The Earth does go around the sun. There's a lot we don't know, and science is never fixed. We're talking about all sorts of odd things today.
We will.
Let's take a short break. Let's have a breather, and we'll come back with some more delectables of discussion and debate just after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back. I just want to read what I think is one of the greatest messages. Good afternoon, Alex. What people need to realise
brilliant.
Is space is big. I mean, really big. I know people think that the Asda in Watford is big, but it ain't anything compared to the size of the universe.
I just want to go to Asda at Watford now.
I just think we literally have the greatest audience. I love you guys so much. You never fail to disappoint. You always put a smile on my face. Thank you for that ineffable wisdom, Trevor in Harrow. And there you go, Asda in Watford. That must be a big Asda for it to be
almost as big
compared
as the
to the size of the universe. Exactly. Let's talk about this story. I don't often like giving credence to things in The Guardian and The Observer, but they are going so heavy today. This guy's a chap called Christopher Harborne. Now, he's a bit of a crypto, not for sale, get Harborne out. They're really going for it, aren't they? But he's a crypto billionaire who has done record-breaking donations to Reform UK. I'm sorry you might not like that, Guardianistas and Observer readers that, you know, a political party that's not left-wing is getting donations. But, hey, that's how politics work. I mean, you've stitched up the unions, haven't you? But what I find so repugnant about this, so the story rotates around the fact that Nigel Farage was given money by Christopher Harborne before announcing he would stand in the general election. Well, at this point, I'm sorry, and apparently it's £5 million. Apparently, Nigel is facing 2 possible probes, one by the Electoral Commission, which is considering whether his failure to declare it may have breached electoral law, and a Standards Commission investigation to see whether he's breached the Members' Code of Conduct. He was given money before he even announced he was coming back to politics. I don't get why this is a problem. But also what I know is I think one of this money was for his security. It was for his protection. You know, Nigel's like, right, if I'm going to go back into the political fray, guess what? People will probably throw things at me or want to kill me, and the state ain't going to give me any protection. And I just think, you know, do we look into what MPs were given or who they were friends with before they're even MPs?
Well, there's so much to unpack there. Within that rule, there is, I think, a line about declaring something within 12 months of standing. So, by the way, this won't stand up to scrutiny, and we cannot make a comparison. There is no paradigm for Nigel Farage. Farage is a one-off, and one of the unfortunate consequences of being a one-off is that he has targeted, and indirectly, papers like The Guardian and their readers incite violence against Nigel Farage on an industrial scale. Look at the front and back pages of the paper today, The Observer. Look, he has every right to be able to protect himself, and as he said in what I thought was quite an outrageous interview with Beth Rigby yesterday, was that he is going to need this protection for the rest of his living days. And if he can afford that, and people like you and I want him in power, then I'm glad there are people out there that can help him out.
If I put myself in his shoes, because I've known Nigel an awfully long time, and he really did deliberate on whether or not he was going to come back into politics. It wasn't like, oh, he's planned this all. Like, he really thought long and hard and thought, I quite like my life. You know, I've got a job at GB News, I'm earning half-decent money, you know, I can cool my heels a bit. You know, he's knackered after 30 years of political campaigning, being abused for, like, you know, leading the charge, moving the Overton window. Now things at the Conservative Party, I feel more than happy to brag about as if they've just come up with these ideas. It's like if he hadn't paved the way, no one would be having these conversations. He basically was by himself on the front lines, and that came at a cost, a personal cost to his safety and his security. Because we've seen, you know, isn't it funny? Joe Brand said next time throw battery acid at him. Not funny. And so, you know, if I was him thinking, do I really want to do this? You know, Law in here this morning said that, you know, there was an arson attack against their home. That is terrifying. Now, if I'm sitting there thinking, do I really want to do this job? The first thing I think is, look, people are going to try and attack me because I'm not elected, because I'm not Starmer, who gets his, you know, cavalcade of vehicles and all the rest of it. I get no one there to look after me. So I've got to pay people. You can't just sort of, you know, ask security guards and all the rest of it. Oh, can you be, you know, a proper security detail, not just like, you know, Don, who used to be a policeman, but, you know, proper team of experts. Guess what? Those people need paying, and over multiple, you know, multiple years. And doing a campaign trail, this involves, you know, if you're going to do an event somewhere, people have to go do a recce, they have to liaise with the police. Of course, there's all these big mass protests every time you go to a reform event. The nutters are there, shouting awful things. And so you would think to yourself, well, I can't just walk through that crowd. I'm going to need people. I'm going to have to pay for these people. And I would imagine, not that I was in the room, that when Christopher Harborne said, look, we really want you back in politics, will you come? I will cover the cost of your security. I don't get what is wrong with that at all.
He wouldn't be in the position he is now without that promise.
In fact, you'd think, right, if this money was coming from the state, they might have something to moan about, like, oh, Prince Harry can't have taxpayer-funded protection. It's not the taxpayer paying for this. What is the blimmin' problem?
The reason I use the Beth Rigby interview is because if you look at that, she's hell bent. Question. When he answers the question, when he talks about his own personal safety, the questioning doesn't pivot at all to say, well, yes, I can imagine. And by the way, all of these people are thoroughly aware of the amount of left-wing influencers that have called for essentially indirectly or directly the death of Nigel Farage because they do not like his politics.
3 assassination attempts on Donald Trump. Charlie Kirk shot. Nigel Farage has had wet concrete thrown at him. He has been attacked. Someone tried to set fire to his house. And what?
Well, by the way, this is just the start. This is a reaction to what we saw in the local elections, and that's only going to build. There'll be the equivalent of lawfare in the UK against Nigel Farage in the same way there was against Trump, because they've only got one modus operandi, and that's attack. We've seen it from the left wing. The kind, caring left wing are always attacking, and they will continue to do this because they are now running scared. They are terrified. The Greens did not have this massive wave this week. The Greens just picked up disillusioned Labour voters, ultra-progressive left-wing nutters, to my opinion. OK, that's what they picked up. What's happened with reform is they've taken from Labour, they've taken from Tories, they've taken from the Lib Dems. They've found a whole cohort